Punks vs. Zombies by John Cronshaw. Chapter 52. Jared led Tommy and the others to the dining hall, a rustic log cabin structure at the back of the compound. Inside, long wooden tables with benches filled the space. People milled about, finding seats while a handful of women in pale robes carried steaming dishes from the kitchen. Eleanor sat at the head table and rose with fluid grace to greet them. "Welcome, friends. Please come in. We're so pleased to share this meal with you." Tommy and the others shuffled forward. "Smells great," Nick said. "Can't beat a proper home-cooked meal." Tommy's group found seats at one of the long tables. Layla edged in close beside him. Mickey sat drumming his fingers on the table. Eleanor lifted her hands and the hall fell silent. "Let us give thanks to creation for this meal, and for new friends joining our community." She threw her head back, her eyes squeezed shut. The other Haven members followed suit, heads back, eyes closed. Tommy wasn't sure where to look. "Please eat." Eleanor gestured to the spread of root vegetables and stewed greens. Jimbo wasted no time piling his plate high. Tommy and the others followed suit with more restraint. The residents ate in a slow manner, chewing each bite thoroughly with eyes closed. Across from Tommy, Jimbo scooped up a potato and stuffed it in his mouth. "Now that's the good stuff." A few Haven members shot him irritated glances. Jimbo gulped his food and chuckled. "You people need to lighten up a little." When no one cracked a smile, Jimbo shook his head. "Ah, come on, don't leave me hanging. Hey, why don't zombies eat ghosts?" He paused. "'Cause they taste like sheet. Get it?" Again, only stony silence answered. "What, too soon?" Across the table, Mickey put his head in his hands with a groan. "In Haven, we do not make light of the fallen," Eleanor said. "Death is never a joking matter." "Got it, boss dude." Jimbo shoveled more food into his mouth. After the meal, Eleanor rose again for a speech. "My friends, let us give thanks again for this meal and this community." Her followers gazed up in silent reverence. "As I prophesied, our world may be shattered, but Haven endures." Her voice swelled with conviction. "There is still hope, still light within each of us, if we stand united as one." Murmurs of assent rippled around the room. Tommy shifted awkwardly on his seat. "We must nurture that light, tend to it, and with creation's blessings we keep it burning bright." Eleanor's intensity increased. "The darkness will try to smother it, but together we are strong. Creation is strong." A few residents nodded and slapped their hands down on the tables. "United we will prevail. Take strength from those around you. Draw comfort from—" A crash cut her off as someone at a nearby table knocked over a pitcher of water. Liquid ran across the floorboards. The man froze, face draining of color, and held up his hands. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Eleanor's expression hardened for a moment before shifting back to calm assurance. "It's all right. Just an accident." She gestured for someone to clean up the spill. The man kept apologizing. A neighbor laid a hand on his shoulder, steering him back to his seat. Tommy met Layla's eyes, seeing his own unease reflected there. He noticed Nix engaged in hushed conversation with the people at the next table, while Zero eyed the other Haven members. Jimbo broke the silence. "So hey, crazy speech and all, but you got to admit, this place has kind of a real join our cult vibe going on. I mean, the robes, the candles, the devotion to Eleanor." Stunned silence, then outraged murmurs. Eleanor's piercing eyes fixed Jimbo. Jimbo gave a weak chuckle. "What, too far?" "I believe it is time for our guests to retire for the evening. Jared, please show them to their quarters." Tommy and the others rose amidst scornful looks from the Haven members. "Way to go, man. First your dumb jokes, now this." Nix nudged Jimbo's ribs as they made for the exit. "Read the room." "Sorry, dude. I just get real twitchy when people start with the religious crap." "Freaking idiots, both of you." Roxy quickened her pace as they left the hall. Layla grabbed Tommy's arm, leaning in close. "This place is seriously messed up. We need to get out of here." "Don't worry, we're leaving at first light." Tommy picked up speed. "I hate to say it, but I think Zero was right." Chapter 53. Tommy sank down on an empty bed and sighed. The others filed into the bunk room after him. "Holy crap," Jimbo said. "And here I thought my family reunions were awkward." Mickey paced back and forth. "This place is all kinds of wrong. We've got to ditch this scene tonight." For once I agree with the junkie. Zero kept his voice low. These haven freaks mean business. Nix nodded. I know I said we should give this place a chance, but it's clear now that was a bad call. He turned to Tommy. What do you think, T? Slip out once everyone's asleep? Tommy raked a hand through his hair, mind racing. Every instinct screamed at him to flee. I don't think we can risk carrying on through the mountains in the dark. Our best bet is to wait it out until first light. He met each of their eyes in turn. We grab what supplies we can carry, then make our way to the vehicles and go. With luck, no one will notice until we're already on the road. And if our luck sucks and they do notice? Jimbo asked. Tommy's jaw set. We make sure it doesn't come to that. Roxy crossed her arms. I don't know, Tommy. These people are hardcore. What if they try to stop us? Why would they? I'm sure they'll be glad to see the back of us, especially Jimbo. Jimbo grinned, but Roxy shook her head. Something Eleanor said concerns me. Tommy sniffed. A lot of what she said concerns me. No, remember when she was doing that prayer thing? Yeah, so? Remember when she said about new friends joining our community? Zero sniffed, joining being the operative word. I'm sure she didn't mean join. I'm sure she meant join like, I don't know, join me on stage for a song, or something. Zero and Roxy glared at him. So naive, Tommy boy. Zero shook his head. Roxy's right, they want us for their cult. That's ridiculous, Tommy said. You saw how they reacted to Jimbo. You really think they'd want a bunch of punks hanging around killing the vibe here? As servants? Why not? Zero smirked. You ever hear of mind control? MK Ultra? Tommy squeezed the bridge of his nose. Fine. We get what we need quietly, then get back to the vans. Grab supplies. No confrontation. Mickey ceased his pacing. Okay, so we sneak out at sunrise then. What do we need? Food and water, Roxy said. Maybe meds or ammo if we can find it. I can grab some tools, Nick said. Might prove handy on the road. Tommy shook his head. Not sure about that. Let's keep it light. Grab only essentials. We'll be quicker that way. He glanced outside at the blackness enshrouding the compound. Night had fallen swiftly in the mountains, swallowing up the last traces of dusk. Everyone try to get some rest while you can. We'll make our move before dawn. The others murmured agreement, moving to claim beds. The day's stresses had exhausted them. One by one, they settled onto the thin mattresses. Soon, the sounds of soft breathing filled the room as they slipped into restless slumber. Tommy remained seated on the edge of his cot, every muscle taut. Sleep eluded him. He sat hunched in the darkness, thoughts racing as he mentally retraced their journey since the Gilman. The horrors they had endured flickered through his mind. Kim's gruesome transformation, Dee's sacrifice, Spike. Then there were thoughts of Neve and Sean. Were they even still alive? Gripped by dread, Tommy pictured returning to find them gone. Just 2 more casualties in this nightmarish new world. The not knowing, the guilt. It was a weight that at any moment could be too much to bear. Can't sleep either, huh? He started at Roxy's voice. This place gives me the creeps, she said. That weirdness at dinner didn't help. I'm thinking we should start making a move. What time is it? Tommy shrugged. Early, late, depends who you ask, I guess. Come with me? Okay, but let's keep this between us. No need to wake the others yet. Tommy nodded and pulled on his jacket. All right, let's see what we can find. Tommy and Roxy slipped out of the dormitory into the moonlit night. Where do we start? Roxy asked. The less used areas. We know they've got food and weapons. Let's just try not to get ourselves caught. Hugging the timber walls, Tommy and Roxy crept through the compound. They paused as a robed sentry passed, gripping his rifle. At the edge of the compound, they came across a small hut hidden in the shadows. Tommy noted the heavy bolt securing the door from the outside. He gestured for Roxy to keep watch, then shifted the bolt and eased the door open. The stench hit him first, putrid and cloying. Gagging, he covered his nose and peered inside. Shadowy figures lay on bare mattresses in the gloom. Some were deathly still, while others shifted fitfully, their breathing wet and ragged. The sickly sweet reek of disease hung thick in the air. Tommy reeled back, bile rising in his throat. What's wrong? Roxy leaned past to look, then recoiled with a choked gasp. Oh, Jesus, are they? Tommy squinted and shook his head. I don't think so. I think they've just been left here to die. Roxy grabbed his arm. We have to tell the others. Steeling himself, Tommy eased open the door once more. The full force of the stench hit him, so strong his eyes watered. Suppressing the urge to retch, he scanned the gloom. One skeletal figure crawled towards them, rags hanging off his emaciated frame. Water. Please. I'm so sorry, we'll come back for you. We have to go now. Roxy yanked him back. Shouts sounded outside. Tommy fled into the night on Roxy's heels. They didn't stop running until they reached the dormitory. Roxy stared down at her shaking hands. Those poor people, just left to die. Her voice quavered. What kind of leader does that? Tommy shook his head. I'm going to find her. Tommy, no. Stay here, I'll be back soon. Before Roxy could protest, Tommy raced into the shadowy compound. Jaw clenched, he searched for any sign of Eleanor, peeking into dark buildings and scanning the moonlit paths. At last he spotted a faint glow coming from the dining hall. He approached the window and peered inside. Eleanor sat alone at a table, embroidering by candlelight. He shoved open the doors, storming up to her table. How could you just abandon those people to die? Eleanor regarded him for several seconds, before placing her embroidery down. Sometimes difficult choices must be made for the greater good. Letting people suffer alone, that's for the greater good? Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Our resources are limited. As leader, I must protect the strong. Tommy shook his head. You're no leader, you're a monster. We're leaving tonight and we're taking anyone who wants to join us. You know nothing of the world out there. Remain here or you will not survive. We'll take that risk. Chapter 54. Tommy turned and ran. He had to warn the others. Racing through the compound, he burst into the dormitory. The others jerked awake, confusion morphing to alarm as Tommy explained what he and Roxy had seen. It's true, Roxy said. She left them to die. Eleanor claims it's necessary to protect resources. Tommy paced back and forth. We need to get out of here now. That's barbaric, Layla said. I knew this place was messed up. Zero got to his feet. How many times do I need to warn you, Tommy boy, before you start listening? Not now, dude. Jimbo patted Zero's back. Let's grab our stuff and bounce. As the others hastily packed, Tommy met Roxy's eyes. Nix hoisted his bag. So what's the plan, T? Storm out guns blazing? No, we move fast and quiet. Within minutes, they were assembled by the door. Tommy took a deep breath. Stay close. We're getting out of this hellhole. Without glancing back, Tommy slipped into the night. Stay together. Get to the vans quickly and quietly. The group made it to the edge of Haven unseen. Their van sat waiting beyond the gates. We should get those people, Tommy said. No, Zero said. There's no room and we need to leave. But let's not make this an argument, eh, Tommy boy? They hurried to the towering iron gates securing the compound's perimeter. Tommy gripped the cold bars and rattled them, but the gates held fast. It's locked tight, we'll have to climb over. Allow me. Jimbo cracked his knuckles. He hoisted himself up and was starting to scale the gate when shouts rang out behind them. Tommy whirled to see Eleanor striding towards them, flanked by armed guards. His heart sank. Leaving so soon? Eleanor said. We want no part of this place, Tommy said. I cannot allow you to expose what you have witnessed here. Eleanor nodded to her guards. Get them out of my sight. The guards advanced, weapons raised. Tommy shrank back, trapped against the gates. Nick stepped forward, eyes blazing. You can't keep the truth buried forever. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. I cannot allow anyone to expose what they have seen here. Her enforcer seized Nix before anyone could react, twisting his arm behind his back. Nix cried out in pain. Get off him, Layla said. This man poses a threat to our community. Eleanor nodded at the nearest guard. Do it. A gunshot rang out, and Nix crumpled lifeless to the ground. A gaping hole in the back of his head oozed blood onto the dirt. For a moment, no one moved. Then Layla let out a primal scream and lunged for the guard who had fired. She clawed at his face and eyes. Caught off guard, he staggered back with a yelp. The others charged the remaining guards in a frenzy. Jimbo barreled into one, knocking him flat on his back. Roxy grabbed the rifle off the fallen guard and bashed another across the head, sending him sprawling. Zero wrestled a rifle away from a guard and swung the stock hard, catching the man's jaw with a crack. Teeth and blood flew as the guard collapsed. Tommy grappled hand-to-hand with a burly guard, trading punches before getting the upper hand and slamming the man's head against the gatepost. The guard slumped over, out cold. In the chaos, Mickey slipped behind Eleanor and pressed his fingers to her back, feigning a pistol. Call them off or you die. Do as they say, stand down. Weapons on the ground now. Zero aimed the rifle at Eleanor's head. The guards lowered their firearms and kicked them away. Tommy swept his gaze over the disarmed men. Which one of you can open the gate? The one he recognized as Jared raised a trembling hand. Eleanor gave him a curt nod, and he moved to the gates, fumbling with the keys. The heavy gates creaked open. Come on, let's go, Roxy said. She turned to run, but Zero grabbed her arm. We're taking Nix with us. His jaw was set, eyes hard. Roxy blinked. But Nix is... I know damn well he's dead, Zero snapped. But we're not leaving him here. Tommy and Jimbo exchanged a nod. They hurried to Nix's body and lifted him with some effort, straining under the dead weight. They loaded him into the back of the Minx van, while Zero and Roxy covered them. Tommy's throat tightened as he took one last look at Nix's lifeless face before shutting the doors. Roxy handed her rifle to Layla and jumped into the driver's seat of her van, cranking the ignition. Zero backed towards the open gate, keeping Eleanor and her guards pinned down at gunpoint. Tommy leapt into his own van, the engine rumbling to life. In the passenger seat, Layla kept the door half open, rifle aimed at their enemies. Go! Go! Tires squealing, Tommy floored the gas and tore into the night. Chapter 55. Tommy guided the van through the darkness, the narrow beams of the headlights casting fleeting illumination on the winding mountain road ahead. The night pressed in around them, suffocating in its absolute stillness. Images flickered through Tommy's mind. Nix's body crumpling to the ground, that gaping wound in the back of his skull, the guards advancing, the crack of gunfire and Layla's scream as she charged them. Tommy blinked, trying to fight back the stinging in his eyes. The silence stretched on until Tommy could bear it no longer. You all right, Lay? She didn't so much as twitch, her stare fixed on some distant point. As Tommy went to nudge her, she shook her head. Just processing, you know. Her voice was little more than a whisper. Nix. Tommy squeezed her arm but had no words. How are you two holding up back there? Silence answered him, thick and oppressive. Jimbo? Mick? Still nothing. A heavy sigh left Tommy as he focused his full attention back to the road. What else was there to say? Hollow platitudes and reassurances that would ring hollow. Screw that. Layla's hand found his in the darkness, gripping it with surprising strength. No words were necessary. How much more could they endure before their fractured spirits shattered for good? Tommy gripped her hand, taking what solace and strength he could from the contact. He would never stop fighting, never surrender to the creeping void of despair and defeat. We should pull over somewhere safe to sleep, Layla said. Tommy nodded. Good idea, I feel like I'm running on fumes. Mickey leaned between the seats. We can't stop, they could be right behind us. Damn it, you're right. He slammed down on the gas, the van's engine growling as they hurtled through the night. Where are we headed? Layla asked. Denver, Tommy said. We'll regroup with the others there, try and get fuel and supplies. Mickey shook his head. No way, man. You really want to roll up on another city right now? He's got a point, Layla said. Last thing we need is to stumble into another populated area unprepared. Mickey and Layla were right. All right. He eased off the gas slightly. We'll skirt around Denver for now, find somewhere secure to hole up and regroup. Mickey slumped in his seat, then shot back up. Just remembered, my stash is running low. How much you got left? 2-3 doses maybe. Mickey's voice took on a desperate edge. You know how this goes down if I run out completely. Layla turned in her seat. You're joking, right? After everything that just went down, that's what you're worried about. You don't understand withdrawal, Mickey snapped. That stuff gets bad like puke your guts out, wanna die bad. I need to re-up soon or I'm completely screwed. That stuff's helped me hold it together. You don't need me dragging us all down. We'll think of something. He cast a sidelong glance at Layla. We're there for you, Mickey. You know that. A tense silence descended over the van. We can't risk going into Denver until we know what we're dealing with. He glanced back at Mickey. But I promise, as soon as we've had a chance to rest and regroup, getting you sorted is the priority. Mickey opened his mouth to protest but seemed to think better of it, slouching back with a muttered curse. The silence stretched on, the rumble of the engine the only sound as they pressed onwards, putting as much distance between themselves and Haven as possible. The pale light of dawn cut through the van's windshield as Tommy guided them into the outskirts of a small mountain town. Boarded up storefronts and abandoned vehicles lined the streets. Rather than heading straight for the gas station on the edge of town, Tommy slowed to a crawl and began navigating a cautious circuit of the main roads. His eyes roved, scanning every shadowy alleyway and darkened doorway for any signs of threat or movement. Satisfied the town appeared free of zombies, he edged back towards the gas station and killed the engine alongside the pumps. Across the street, a hardware store caught his eye, its windows intact. A few seconds later, Roxy pulled up beside them. "Looks clear," Tommy said. "I'm going to top up the tank before we shove off again. I'll take another look around the perimeter, just to be safe." Tommy watched her slip from the driver's seat, rifle in hand, and begin a slow patrol of the surrounding area. Only once she'd circled the gas station without incident did he grab a fuel nozzle and set about refilling their tank. A flicker of movement in his peripheral vision made him start, his head whipping around to find the source. It was only Layla emerging from the van, scanning their surroundings with the same guarded alertness. "How are we looking?" she asked. "Quiet for now." He risked another look around as the fuel nozzle clunked and hissed. "Once we're done here, I'm thinking we push on and try to find somewhere more defensible to regroup." "Makes sense. What about Zero and the others?" "Others, there's only him and Rox now." Roxy reappeared at that moment, slinging the rifle over her shoulder as she made her way over to them. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, her movements stiff. "All clear over that way. What's the plan?" "Tommy thinks we should push on," Layla said. "Try to find somewhere more secure to hole up and figure out our next move." "Sounds like our best play." "You get through to Zero yet?" Tommy asked. "Not yet. How's Jimbo holding up?" "About as well as can be expected." He raked a hand through his lank hair. Haven really did a number on him. Roxy's brows knitted together. "Yeah, I think Zero's taking it hard too. We've all lost a lot." "Damn right." They lapsed into a heavy quiet. She broke the silence with a sigh. "I should gas up, then we should try and get our bearings. Any idea which way we should head from here?" "We'll want to skirt the Denver metro area, at least for now. Get back on the highways." Roxy grunted, already moving to the pumps. Tommy stared at nothing, the weight of everything pressing down on his skull. How much more death would they have to deal with? How much more could they take? "Hey," Roxy's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "We're still here. That's what counts for now, right?" He gave a tight nod. "One step at a time, that's all we can do." Zero emerged from the Minx van, his movements stiff and labored. "How are you holding up, man?" Zero-eyed Tommy, his hand drifting up to prod around where he'd been shot. "Been worse. I'll live." Tommy watched him for a moment, searching for the right words. "I meant about what happened back there." The muscle in Zero's jaw twitched, his gaze slid away, fixating on something in the middle distance. He gestured towards the darkened storefronts lining the opposite side of the street. "That hardware store. We should take a look." "Are you sure?" "Over here," Zero called, already heading towards the store. "We'll need shovels." Tommy frowned. "Shovels? What for?" Zero fixed him with a glare. "For Nick's, dumbass. We're not just leaving his body out in the open like some piece of trash." A lump formed in Tommy's throat. "You're right. Let's do it properly." He fell into step behind Zero, casting a glance back towards their vans. Roxy had finished refueling and was making her way over, Layla close on her heels. The plate glass windows were unshattered, but coated in a thick veneer of dust and grime. As they drew closer, Layla slowed her pace. "You sure this is a good idea? We've got no idea what's in there." "Only one way to find out," Zero said, dropping into a crouch to peer through the window. "How's it looking?" Roxy asked. "Can't see much from out here." He adjusted the rifle slung across his back. "But I didn't spot any signs of movement or anything out of the ordinary." The others converged around the window, taking turns to peer inside. Layla lingered back, circling the perimeter with her tire iron at the ready, standing, watchful guard. Looks clear to me, Roxy said. Let's check it out, Tommy said. Stay alert. Roxy gripped the door's handle. It was unlocked, and they filed inside, the dim interior smelling of sawdust and machine oil. A hand-painted sign hung haphazardly from one shelf's edge. WWG1, WWGA scrawled across it. What's that supposed to say? Zero grinned. Well, I'll be damned. Layla shot Tommy a questioning look, but he could only offer a wordless shake of his head. Zero traced his fingers along the improvised sign. This sad sack really drank from the QAnon Kool-Aid all the way until the bitter end, huh? I thought you were into all that stuff, Roxy said. That psyop? Zero scoffed. Trust the plan, my ass. Sit back, sheeple. Nothing to see here. Do I look like some lazy boy general to you? Baking crumbs left by the deep state to keep us docile. You're right. I mean, I've absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but I'll just nod along. Zero shook his head. The world's gone to hell and you're still asleep. I wish I could be you, I really do. He grabbed shovels from a rack, distributing them among the group. A creak from the back room made them all freeze. Who's there? You kids better not be thinking of looting my store. A broad man with gray hair and a thick beard stepped out from the gloom, a battered shotgun cradled in his arms. Tommy held up his hands. Easy there, friend, we're not here to cause any trouble. He gestured to the shovels. We just need to bury one of our own, that's all. The man's eyes narrowed as he appraised them. After a tense moment, he gave a curt nod. I got no quarrel with giving a body a proper send-off, but those shovels ain't free. Zero stepped forward, digging out his wallet. How much do we owe you? Money's no good. I need supplies, canned food, medicine, ammo, essentials. Zero nodded slowly. I hear you, these are trying times. He slipped his wallet back into his pocket. Way I see it, what's happening out there ain't no random disease outbreak. This is a planned culling by the elite. He gestured around the store. You and me, we're the folks who've seen past the lies and cover stories. The man's grip tightened on his shotgun. You saying the globalists are behind this zombie mess? Got it in one. The New World Order has been telegraphing their plans for years with Agenda 21, the Georgia Guidestones, all that garbage. Now it's finally going down. Depopulation through biological warfare to clear the way for their technocratic, transhuman utopia. The store owner stroked his beard. You might be onto something. Zero clapped him on the shoulder. We're both travelers on the path of awakening, my friend. The Illuminati Globalist Alliance wants us, distracted, fighting amongst ourselves while they reshape the world as they see fit. He raised an eyebrow at the WWG1WWGA sign. Where we go one, where we go all, am I right? The man's face broke into a broad grin. Well, I'll be damned, son. I was starting to think there weren't any other pilled folks left. He extended a hand to Zero. Tell you what, you can have those shovels free of charge. Just promise me you'll keep fighting the good fight, you hear? Zero dipped his head. You have my word, brother. We won't go quiet into that endless night the Cabal has planned. He turned back to the others. Let's get our people taken care of. There's still a war to win. The store owner gave them a crisp salute as they headed back outside. Give 'em hell for the rest of us. Chapter 56. Tommy and Layla headed back towards their van, shovels in hand, while Zero and Roxy made for the other vehicle. A few minutes later, they pulled back out onto the road, leaving the small mountain town behind. Can you believe Zero back there? Layla said. Who would have thought his conspiracy ramblings would actually help us out for once? I don't know. Tommy shrugged. Maybe Zero's onto something. Maybe this whole zombie outbreak isn't just some freak thing. What if it really is all part of some bigger plan? Layla rolled her eyes. Please don't tell me you're buying into that New World Order crap now, too. We have enough real problems without going down rabbit holes. Tommy opened his mouth to respond, but Zero's voice crackled over the walkie-talkie. Yo, Tommy boy, we're pulling off up ahead. Looks like there's a cemetery coming up on the right. Probably our best bet. Copy that. He followed the Minx van through an arched set of gates into the parking lot. Layla grimaced as she surveyed their surroundings. Well, I guess this is as good a place as any. Tommy killed the engine and twisted around to face the others. Wake up, guys. Mickey stirred and rubbed his eyes. What's happening? We're going to put Nix to rest. Jimbo sat up and stared outside. Tommy took in a breath, his gaze fixed on the rows of headstones. We say goodbye, then get back on the move. We all good? Let's do this then, Layla said. Taking the shovels, they followed Zero down a narrow trail that opened up into a small, grassy clearing, the morning sun filtering through the budding trees. Zero surveyed the area with a nod of approval. Perfect. Peaceful. The rest of them stood in heavy silence for a long moment before Layla stepped forward. Let's get to it then. Jimbo took the lead, picking a spot beneath a gnarled oak tree, and began to dig without a word. The others joined in, the soft thunk of metal on dirt the only sound as they worked. Roxy's breath grew labored after a while, the dark circles becoming even more pronounced beneath her eyes. But she didn't pause or complain. Zero attacked the earth with the same relentless intensity, his powerful swings sending clods of dirt flying despite his injured shoulder. Tommy found his mind drifting as he dug, thoughts turning to Neve and Sean back in Philly. He shook his head, trying to focus on the task at hand. There would be time enough to reunite with his family, or grieve their loss later. For now, their duty was to Nix. All too soon, the grave was ready. Moving as one, they gently lifted Nix's body from the van and lowered it into the earthen trench. Zero took his place at the head of the grave. Nix, you crazy son of a bitch, you were the realest of the real ones, you know that? The heart and soul of our band. He blinked and stared down into the pit. Remember when we found your scrawny ass busking on that street corner in Pittsburgh, just wailing away on that beat-up bass like it owed you money? He shook his head. You were so damn green. But you had passion, and you had heart. More than enough to make up for your lack of skill back then. A quiet chuckle escaped Jimbo, the first real reaction any of them had gotten since Haven. When our former bassist quit like a little bitch mid-tour, we knew we had to scoop you up before anyone else did. Best decision we ever made, letting your scruffy ass into our van and onto our stage. For a moment, Zero's stoic facade cracked, his voice wavering. You were the glue that held this whole freak show together, especially during that last album. Always knew just what dumb joke to bust out to break the tension. A small grin broke across Jimbo's features. He always used to call me the Phil Collins of punk. That startled a laugh from Roxy, followed by a sniffle. Tommy found himself smiling despite the tears welling in his eyes. You used to tell him if I ever left, I'd do it by fax. Really channel that Phil Collins energy. As their laughter tapered off, a reverent hush fell over the group once more. Zero swallowed hard, looking down at Nix's still form. We'll miss you, brother. The road won't be the same without your dumb jokes and worse haircuts. His voice cracked, and he stepped back. Jimbo moved to stand beside him, his arm looping around Zero's shoulders. One by one, they began taking handfuls of earth and scattering them into the grave in silence. A final send-off. When the last mound of soil had been patted into place, they lingered for a few moments. Come on, Tommy said. Let's get moving like Nix would want. We've got a long road ahead. As they prepared to leave the clearing, he couldn't help but steal one last glance over his shoulder at the freshly turned earth. Chapter 57. A heavy silence hung over the group as they made their way back towards the vans. Tommy walked slightly apart from the others, his jaw clenched as he wrestled with the grief and fatigue churning within him. How much more could they endure before the relentless onslaught of this new reality crushed them? A snarl split the air, shattering the calm. Tommy froze, every muscle tensing as a zombie shambled into view at the edge of the tree line, milky eyes locked onto them with mindless hunger. Tommy's shoulders sagged. Not again. The others registered the threat, raising their shovels defensively. More rotting forms emerged from the brush, the air filling with their growls. Stay close, Tommy said, brandishing his own shovel as the first wave of undead converged on them. Back to the vans, quickly. He swung with all his might, the shovel's edge crunching into the skull of the lead walker. Bone and viscera sprayed as the creature crumpled, but its brethren surged forward. Moving as one, the group formed a tight defensive phalanx, shovels flashing in the late morning light as they battered the dead back. Tommy grunted, his arms burning as he swung to carve a clear path. All around him, his friends fought with the same ferocity. Even Jimbo had roused from his shell-shocked state, a roar tearing from his throat as his shovel decapitated another zombie. The dead fell in twitching heaps around them, but the mindless horde seemed inexhaustible, more of the things clawing their way forward. Tommy shattered the skull of another zombie. Fall back. They fell into a fighting retreat, desperation fueling wild swings. Roxy screamed and fell back, hitting the ground hard. Tommy shot between her and a zombie. caved in its skull with a bone-jarring strike, and hauled Roxy back to her feet. Layla dashed towards the van, fumbling to yank the driver's side door open. Tommy swept in, batting the zombies aside with a flurry of shovel strikes to give her an opening. "Get it started." Layla hauled herself into the driver's seat as Tommy whirled back towards the melee, his heaving breath sawing in his throat. Mickey reached the van next, his eyes wild as he clambered into the back and slammed the door shut behind him. Jimbo joined him a heartbeat later, drenched in sweat and worse. Zero grabbed Roxy's hand and together they fought towards the second van, their shovels clearing a narrow path with every desperate swing. Behind them, Tommy brought up the rear, swiveling to bat aside the encroaching dead. Zero and Roxy piled into the Minx van, as Tommy whirled for a final, gasping glance around the chaotic scene. Fresh waves of undead continued pouring forth from the tree line. Tommy's arms felt like lead weights, each shovel strike a monumental effort. How many more battles like this awaited them? How many more friends would they be forced to bury along this endless, blood-soaked road? A sudden impact against his back sent him staggering, shovel falling from numbed fingers. He twisted to see a zombie reaching for him, its breath rancid as it pressed him back against the van. He grappled desperately, trying to keep those jaws at bay, his strength waning. A deafening crack rang out and the zombie's head snapped back in a welter of splintered bone and brain matter. Layla stood in the open van doorway, rifle still raised to her shoulder. "Get in the van, Tommy. You drive." Flinging himself away from the twitching corpse, he hurled himself through the open door as Layla swung the rifle's muzzle back towards the seething press of undead. She kept up a blistering rate of fire, carving a window through which Tommy could slam the van's side shut. He threw the locks just as a wave of fetid bodies banged against the metal, howling and clawing at the doors. For a frozen instant, the world shrank down to those rattling walls. Then the engine thundered to life, and they hurtled forward. Tommy's chest heaved as he watched Roxy and Zero's van swerve in tight pursuit. His breaths came harsh and ragged, adrenaline slowly leaching from his limbs to be replaced by soul-deep exhaustion. Mickey let out a shuddering breath. "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, man." "Me neither," Tommy said. "But we don't have a choice, not anymore." Chapter 58. Tommy squinted against the glare of the late afternoon sun as he guided the van towards the outskirts of Denver. "We're not going into the city, are we?" Layla asked. Tommy shook his head. "Too risky without knowing what we're rolling into. We'll skirt around the outer suburbs, try to find somewhere defensible to hole up for the night." Mickey leaned forward from the back seat. "Are you kidding me? We need a pharmacy. We have to go in and scavenge." "Dude's got a point," Jimbo said. "Food's getting real slim, too." "You want to wander into an unknown city, just us against God knows what's waiting?" Layla glared back at him. "After what happened in Reno, I'd rather take my chances out here." Mickey drummed his hands on the back of Tommy's seat. "I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm fresh out of methadone. Like as of 10 minutes ago, my last dose just ran out." "I get it," Tommy said. "We'll find you some more as soon as we're set up somewhere relatively secure." "Oh yeah, and how long do you think I have before the cold sweats and vomiting kick in? You know what kind of state I'll be in if we wait too long." "Withdrawal's a bitch," Jimbo said. "He needs help, dude." Tommy blew out a breath. "I said I get it, all right? Believe me, helping you is a priority. But think about it. We're all barely keeping it together after burying Nix. You think any of us can manage another fight right now?" "We don't need to fight," Mickey said. "We can do it quick." "Damn it, Mickey, for all our sakes we need to find somewhere secure first before pushing into Denver proper. Get some rest, some food, get our wits about us. Then we'll make getting your medicine job one, I swear it." "Rest? You think I'll be able to rest going through the hell of withdrawal? You haven't seen me really sick, man. It makes zombies look like a bunch of freaking kindergartners." "Haven't I?" Tommy's nostrils flared. "We've been there for you. We both have." "Yeah, doesn't seem that way." Layla twisted around to face him. "Would you keep it down? You're going to draw every zombie within a 5-mile radius." "Oh, don't give me that," Mickey said, like you've never raised your voice. "Hey, that's enough," Tommy snapped. Silence filled the van. "I get you're going through it, I do, but we're all struggling to keep our heads above water here. I spent half this morning digging a grave and saying goodbye to a friend. Then we had to run for our lives again. Tommy's right. We've been running nonstop since, damn, I don't know when. I think we all need a chance to process and recharge." "Process?" Mickey let out a bitter laugh. "You've got to be kidding me. Have you taken a good look around lately? This whole world has gone to hell. There's nothing left to process except doing whatever it takes to keep breathing. That doesn't give you an excuse to fly off the handle. We're part of a team here, whether you like it or not. Mickey huffed. Real team of the year material you lot have turned out to be. Going to abandon your friend to the hell of withdrawals the second things get tough. That is not what's happening here, and you know it. Tommy spoke through gritted teeth. The beginnings of a pounding tension headache was building between his eyes. Well, from where I'm sitting, it sure as hell seems that way. Just like with Haven. Led us right into that nightmare because you couldn't be bothered to listen to reason. Jimbo punched the door beside him. All right, shut it, both of you. He shoved between the seats, yanked the walkie-talkie from the dash and thumbed it on. Roxy? Zero? You reading me? A brief crackle of static answered. We're here, Roxy said. What's going on over there? Pull over up ahead wherever's good, okay? I need to ditch this clown car for a while. Copy that. See you soon. Jimbo sat back in his seat and folded his arms. You need to pull it together, dude. Tommy pinched the bridge of his nose. I've got it together. Sure you do. Jimbo turned his glare on Mickey and Layla. You two better as well. The other van pulled over onto the shoulder up ahead. Tommy pulled in behind them. They idled in tense silence as Jimbo slung his pack over his shoulder and exited without another word. Tommy watched as Jimbo let himself into the Minx van. You see that? Mickey said once they'd started moving again. That's on you, Tommy. Before Tommy could argue, Roxy's voice cut across the radio. Listen up, dillholes. It's been a hell of a day for all of us, so why don't we stop the posturing, eh? Mick's hurting. I get that. But so are the rest of us. What Tommy's saying about finding somewhere secure, catching our breath, makes sense to me. Tommy keyed the radio. What's the plan, Rox? Soon as we've got a defensible spot, we'll go on a supply run. Prioritize medications. Sound good? A low grumble came from the back seat, but Mickey said nothing else. Tommy cleared his throat. Sounds like a plan, thanks, Rox. Don't mention it, let's just get somewhere out of the open, then we'll reassess. Got it. Through the windshield, downtown Denver's skyline receded into the distance, fading into the haze of late afternoon. Gathering his willpower, Tommy forced himself to stay alert and focused on the road ahead, ignoring his body's pleas for sleep. Tommy's grip tightened on the steering wheel as Mickey kept up a steady stream of bitter muttering from the back seat. You see any places to hole up around here, or are we just driving in circles till my brain leaks out my ears? For the last time, keep your voice down, Layla said over her shoulder. You want to announce our position to every freak out there? Oh, what? Like they can't already hear this bucket full of bolts rumbling down the road? The crackle of the walkie-talkie was almost a relief. Tommy, you copy? What's up, Zero? Looks like there's an industrial area up ahead according to my map. Factories and warehouses right off the interstate. Looked pretty self-contained. Might make for a good place to bunker down for a while if it's clear. Over. I don't know, Tommy said. Might be a lot of choke points in a place like that. Could get overrun too easily. He's got a point though, Layla said. None of us are exactly firing on all cylinders right now. A contemptuous snort came from the back seat. Understatement of the freaking year. And whose fault is that? Layla wheeled on Mickey. Zero's voice cut across them. Bickering's how good people end up dead. I'm making an executive decision here. Is that so? You got a better plan, Tommy boy? I'm all ears. Tommy opened his mouth but realized he didn't have a counteroffer. He was too damn tired to even think straight. That's what I thought, Zero said. Tired people get stupid, start making mistakes. Then people get dead. As much as Tommy hated to admit it, Zero had a point. He could feel the bone-deep weariness clouding his mind, sapping his energy and focus. All right, fine. We'll check out this industrial place of yours. But if it passes muster, we're sealing it up tight and catching at least a few hours sleep before anything else. Roger that. Just keep an eye out for the turnoff up ahead. Over. A few miles later, Tommy spotted the sign for an industrial park tucked in among the suburban sprawl. Windowless gray buildings squatted amid a maze of service roads and crisscrossing rail spurs. I guess this is the place, Tommy said, turning off. Stay alert. Could be squatters or deadheads holed up in any of these places. He slowed to a crawl as they eased through the industrial park. Most of the buildings were unmarked slabs of concrete or rusting metal siding. The Minx van pulled ahead, taking the lead. Tommy kept a few car lengths back, scanning every shadowed doorway and blind corner as they went. Brake lights flashed up ahead, and the Minx van came to a stop in front of a low-slung building bracketed by a pair of rolling steel doors, large enough to admit a trailer truck. Tommy thumbed the radio. "You getting a look?" "Way ahead of you, Tommy boy." Zero's silhouette appeared ahead, rifle in hand as he slipped through the cracked open personnel door. "Give me a minute to check the place out. If I give the signal, be ready to move. Over." Tommy forced his weary eyes to remain vigilant. One advantage of the place: no exterior windows to attract unwanted attention, but also no easy sightlines or avenues of escape if things went sideways. He started as Mickey leaned up between the front seats, one hand rubbing his temples. "Man, I don't know how much longer I can keep it together. I'm barely hanging on here." Tommy fixed him with a sidelong look, taking in Mickey's pale complexion and the sheen of sweat beading across his brow. "We'll get you sorted, Mickey. I promise. But we need to get some rest first." "All clear from what I can see," Zero said through the radio. "This place should do us for some shut-eye at least. Over." "You're sure?" "Relax, just a bunch of old office junk and shelving units in here. Over." Tommy blew out a long breath. "Thanks, man." The shutters rolled up, revealing Zero turning a handle in the dusty gloom. "Bring the vans in. Over." "Got it." Tommy rolled the van into the warehouse, Roxy coming in behind. The warehouse's interior was gloomy and still, heavy with the scents of dust, machine oil, and stale cigarette smoke. Zero stood just inside, closing the shutters. Tommy hopped down from the van and stretched his legs. "Good find, man." Zero gestured deep into the building. "Let's get those doors sealed, then we can shove anything we need out of the way and bunk down." Tommy and Zero moved through the warehouse into an office area, checking for weak points. Abandoned coffee mugs and half-eaten snacks sat atop cluttered desks. Filing cabinets stood half open. After making a quick sweep of the perimeter, they set about barring the warehouse's entrances with anything substantial enough to serve as makeshift barricades. Several heavy metal shelving units came crashing over to block the main bay doors. Layla stood guard by the personnel door, her face set in grim determination. Once they'd secured the building, Roxy led the way in distributing sleeping bags and blankets, staking out a rough circle in the center of the open bay. "May not be the Ritz, but it'll do for some shut-eye at least," she said, dropping her machete beside her bedroll. Her leather jacket slipped from her shoulders as she flopped down onto her back with an audible groan. "Damn right," Zero said, checking the action on his rifle before leaning it against one of the shelving units bracketing their makeshift camp. "I'll take first watch." Mickey let out a strangled moan from where he'd collapsed beside his own blankets. He screwed his eyes shut, breath coming in harsh pants. "I swear, if no one helps me soon, I'm not gonna make it." A muscle twitched in Zero's jaw, his eyes narrowing. For a terrifying moment, Tommy thought he might lash out. Then the moment passed and Zero shook his head. "For the last time, get some rest while you can, Mick. No one's helping your ass if we're too burned out to hold a gun straight. Got it?" He turned to make eye contact with each of them in turn. "Same goes for the rest of you. We bunk down, catch a few winks." Tommy wanted to protest, but his heavy limbs and fuzzy mind wouldn't cooperate. Sleep, blessed sleep, was within reach at last. "Just a couple hours," Zero said. "We'll all cycle through watch, stay vigilant." He squinted at the grimy face of his wristwatch. "Call it 4 hours, 8 for the drivers. That'll give us all a chance to recharge, then we're right back to it." Tommy gave a slow nod. "You got it, man." Zero disappeared and returned a few minutes later, pulling out a battered armchair and dragging it towards the sealed entrance. "You just concentrate on sleep." Tommy didn't need telling twice. Exhaustion crashed over him in waves as he settled into his blankets beside Layla. Within minutes, his eyes drifted shut, no longer able to resist the pull of oblivion. Chapter 59. Tommy jolted awake, his heart pounding. For a moment, his mind couldn't make sense of the cavernous shadows surrounding him. Then the harsh, ragged pants and muffled cries penetrated the fog. He squinted into the darkness, making out Zero's silhouette looming over a writhing form on the floor. Mickey, in the throes of withdrawal, trapped in a private hell no one else could fully comprehend. "Get off him!" Tommy scrambled from his bedroll as broken pleas tore from Mickey's throat. He charged over, bare feet slapping against the cold concrete. In the gloom, he could just make out Zero straddling Mickey's spasming body, one forearm pinning the back of his friend's neck to the floor. I said, get off him. Can't let him up yet. Zero kept Mickey restrained as he twisted and thrashed. He needs to chill out before I can let him go. Mickey, look at me. Tommy dropped to his knees as he clasped Mickey's sweat-slick hand. The clammy skin burned with fever, tendons standing out in harsh relief, as Mickey's fingers involuntarily seized in spasms. His unfocused eyes bored straight through Tommy, glazed and wild. Mickey groaned as he writhed and strained against Zero's restraint. What's going on over there? Layla appeared beside them, clutching her rifle. It started, Tommy said. The withdrawals kicked in full force. He dragged his gaze back to Mickey, his oldest friend, a man he'd seen through the darkest depths of his own rock-bottom lows more times than he could count. He reached out to lay a calming hand on Mickey's heaving ribs. I've got this, Zero. I know how to handle him through this, okay? Just get off him and let me take over. Zero gave a brusque nod and rose to his feet, relinquishing his grip on Mickey. Tommy didn't hesitate. He positioned himself over Mickey's shuddering form, shifting until he could pin his friend's shoulders against the bare concrete with his full weight. Mickey bucked and twisted, tremors racking his slight frame with enough force that Tommy had to grit his teeth. Easy now. You're all right, man. You're not alone, you hear me? I'm right here with you. Tommy stroked Mickey's damp hairline in what he hoped was a grounding caress. Gradually, the wild thrashing subsided. Tommy? The word was little more than a cracked whisper, almost inaudible. Yeah, buddy, I've got you. Just try to breathe, okay? He demonstrated with a few slow, exaggerated inhales and exhales of his own. Breathe with me, nice and easy. For several minutes, the only sounds were Mickey's shallow, gasping breaths. Tommy kept up the murmured litany, one hand splayed across Mickey's chest while the other cradled his head. He lost all sense of time, the rest of the world narrowing until it contained just the two of them, locked in this private struggle against the ravages of Mickey's cravings. It could have been seconds or hours before Mickey's eyes found a semblance of focus. What time? Layla crouched down beside them. Tommy shot her a look over his shoulder. Zero? What time is it now? Going on midnight. Tommy ground his teeth. Part of him ached to make good on his promise to Mickey right then and there. He could round up Zero and Roxy and sneak them into the heart of Denver. Fewer prying eyes, maybe less chance of getting pinned down by a horde, but they were all still beyond tired. They'd all be as good as dead. Did you get that, man? Tommy asked, refocusing on Mickey's ashen face. It's midnight. Just need to wait it out until sunup, then I swear to you we'll try to get what you need. A shudder rippled through Mickey, a glassy sheen of sweat beading on his pallid skin. Don't know if... His eyes fluttered as a violent tremor seized him. I don't know if I can last. Yes, you can. Tommy cradled Mickey's face between his palms. Mickey, look at me. You're gonna make it through this night. I'm not going anywhere, you hear me? We're in this together, same as always. I'm done, man. I've got your back, Mickey. No matter how bad it gets, I'll keep you anchored. Just like you've done for me more damn times than I can count. We're gonna weather this storm. I swear it. Fresh shudders racked Mickey's frame. Tommy held him close and cast a glance at the shadows cloaking the vast warehouse interior, silently willing Dawn to hurry. He met Layla's eyes and nodded. They would find a way to help their brother survive this, no matter what. Chapter 60. The dull scrape of a metal fork against an emptied can signaled the end of another joyless meal. Tommy tossed the stained utensil aside and leaned back against the van's fender with a weary sigh. Across the loading bay, Zero shoveled the last few bites of cold-baked beans into his mouth, his brow furrowed as he worked his jaw. He set his bowl down and cracked his knuckles. We doing this supply run into Denver today or what? An uneasy silence fell over the group. Tommy cleared his throat. Way I see it, we've got two choices here. We can poke our heads out and go looking for more trouble, or we sit on our asses and rot, Zero said. Tommy sighed, rubbing weariness from his eyes. There'd been no rest for Mickey through the night, only wave after wave of searing delirium, until exhaustion claimed him sometime before dawn. We've got to help Mickey. The words felt more like an appeal than a statement of intent, as Tommy scanned the haggard faces of his fellow survivors. Jimbo shrugged, wringing his hands together. I ain't saying we shouldn't. Just, well, maybe we ought to kick this particular brand of trouble down the road a bit, yeah? Zero grunted. Can't have another night like that one. Layla raised her head. Which is why we need to help him. Roxy nodded. None of you sad sacks seemed to get much shut-eye last night, did you? Zero laughed. That's an understatement if ever I've heard one. Jimbo pushed himself upright with obvious effort. And you think traipsing out into a zombie-infested city with our whole merry band is going to fix that? How exactly? Because while we're sat here spitting at one another, our boy in there's only slipping deeper down that black hole. Roxy glowered at him. Once the seizures hit, things start getting real bad. She turned to Tommy. I don't know about you, but I sure as hell don't want to see another friend. She shook her head. Not if I can do something about it. Zero simply nodded. Tommy exhaled. His head swam with the same weary doubts as the others. The need to press on versus the abject exhaustion wearing each of them down. We're either with Mickey till the end or we're not. Question is, what kind of people do we want to be when it's all said and done? He met Zero's gaze. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not letting him face this hell alone. Roxy gave a stiff nod. Good, then we're all squared on getting into Denver and finding some meds for Mickey. She glanced around their ragged circle. Question is, who wants off the hook for babysitting duty? She jabbed a thumb towards Mickey curled on his side. Gonna need at least one set of eyes here, to mind Mickey and probably another to stand watch. Layla's shoulders slumped. I can stay. Jimbo drew a breath. I'll hang back with Mickey. Keep him stable till you lot make it back. Maybe bring back some cake, or cookies. Tommy made to protest. Thanks, man. Then let's quit flapping our gums and get kitted up, yeah? Roxy stood and brushed off her grimy jeans. In a flurry of muted activity, the others gathered their things. Zero pulled his rifle from the van and began checking the action. Tommy watched as Zero arched an eyebrow at his own bedraggled shotgun leaning nearby. You might want me to look over that piece before you load her up, Zero said. Wouldn't want any nasty surprises, do we? Tommy frowned. I don't intend to use it, and anyway, I checked it last night. Zero grinned. Last night, huh? Was that during your friend's sweaty freakout, or after? It's fine. No, Tommy boy, it's not. There ain't nothing worse than a dirty weapon when things go down. One clogged barrel and you go from being in control to being a goddamn liability to everyone around you. It won't come to that, and stop calling me Tommy boy. Zero gave a half smile. Just let me take a quick look, all right? That way I can rest easy knowing everyone's packing a smooth shooter and you can do the same. All right, Tommy threw up his hands. Do what you need to. Thank you, Tommy, appreciate that. Tommy knew next to nothing about proper gun maintenance. But seeing Zero dismantling the shotgun into its component pieces, examining and cleaning each one in turn, made him want to learn. Swallowing his pride, he asked for help, and Zero obliged without comment. Zero coached him through brushing out the grit and carbon fouling the breech and firing chamber. He couldn't remember the last time someone had taken such care to pass along this kind of basic knowledge, or when he'd last felt anything other than pure exhaustion and existential dread. Zero gave Tommy's shoulder a firm squeeze as they reassembled the refurbished shotgun. You're gonna be okay out there. With a faint nod, Tommy thumbed a few shells into the shotgun. Thanks. Really, man, I owe you one. Don't mention it. Zero's faint smile vanished as quickly as it appeared. Just watch my back out there and we'll call it even. A ragged cough echoed behind him. Mickey was stirring. Tommy shouldered his shotgun and moved to check on his friend. We'd best get rolling here soon, Roxy said. Yeah, time to go earn our pay, people. Zero leveled his rifle, taking point as they moved towards the vans. Stay safe, yeah? Layla said. Tommy nodded. I will. Jimbo came over and embraced him in a hug. See you soon, dude. I'll keep an eye on Mickey. Thanks, man. Roxy honked her horn and leaned from the window. Jimbo, you're on the shutters. Tommy, we need to leave. Got you. He glanced at Mickey and took a deep breath. Be back soon, man. Chapter 61. The Minx van rumbled through the deserted streets of downtown Denver, its tires crunching over scattered debris and broken glass. Tommy kept his shotgun braced across his knees, eyes straining against the gloomy shadows outside. Every few blocks revealed more burned-out husks of vehicles, toppled newsstands, and the occasional shambling silhouette that made his finger tighten around the trigger guard. Up front, Zero leaned over the dashboard, scrutinizing an unfolded map. I'm thinking our best bets are going to be around here. He traced a calloused fingertip along a cluster of blocks near the heart of the city's core. Department stores, strip malls, maybe even one of the big chain pharmacies left standing if we're lucky. Roxy grunted as she weaved them through a fresh spill of rubble choking the intersection ahead. You know, I used to love those old zombie flicks back in the day. Zero snorted a brief laugh. You're kidding, right? Those old Romero movies were practically a public service. Don't get me wrong, I loved every second of Night and Dawn, but he had nothing on Fulci when it came to pure, uncut Euro trash. Zero shook his head and grinned. Such a hipster. At least old George had a point to make with all the satire stuff, Tommy said. Yeah, and a right heavy hand he used to bludgeon us with it too, Roxy said. Zero gave a weary chuckle. Can't lie though, I loved every over-the-top second of those flicks as a kid. All the blood, guts, and bad mustaches you could ever want. For me, Zombieland will always be a modern classic, Roxy said. Took the piss out of the genre while still delivering some truly brilliant zombie kills. I'll give you that, Zero said. Always had me in stitches any time Woody showed up. Roxy barked out a laugh. You just liked the bit with the Ghostbusters stubby. Zero sniffed. Whatever. You ever see Bio-Zombie? Nah. Me neither, Tommy said. Criminally underrated, kind of like Dawn of the Dead meets Mallrats in Hong Kong. Zero craned his neck around, checking the side roads. Let me guess, combination of splat-stick violence and juvenile humor? That's pretty much the pitch right there. She raised a finger. Just make sure you watch the original with subs. Trust me, the English dubbing's so bad, everyone sounds like they learned to speak from Bill and Ted. Subtitles, huh? Zero grinned and shook his head. Such a hipster. Roxy and Tommy both laughed. Zero jabbed a meaty finger at the map once more. Speaking of Dawn, might not be a bad place to poke around here. Shopping mall in the middle of the city, bound to have one of those big chain pharmacy counters on the premises. Tommy frowned, cocking an eyebrow at the semi-demolished facade sliding by outside. Could be exactly what we need to kit Mickey up and still get our asses back on the road. Zero pointed ahead. Keep going. If I'm reading this right, should run us smack into that big outdoor shopping promenade off 16th Street. He glanced up. From there, we might have better luck avoiding potential choke points and finding what we need without getting hemmed in. Roxy gave a curt nod, hanging a hard right at the next intersection. You know, sometimes I can't help but wonder if all those zombie flicks weren't some kind of predictive programming all along, Zero said. Tommy furrowed his brow. What do you mean, like the movies were trying to prepare us for all this? In a manner of speaking. Zero twisted around in the passenger seat to fix Tommy with an intense stare. The way I figure it, the globalists have always buried their plans in plain sight for the sheeple to sleepwalk right into. Make folks numb and accepting to even the most nightmarish ideas, simply by normalizing them through entertainment and media. Roxy snorted out a laugh. What? Like the World Economic Forum commissioned a bunch of drive-in schlock flicks about the great zombie uprising just to soften us all up. Have you completely lost it? I'm serious, Zero said. Why else would they have green-lighted movie after movie about the same scenario we're living right now, eh? Seems a bit more than coincidental if you ask me. Oh, I don't know. Could just be that quality original ideas are awfully hard to come by in the Dream Factory these days. Roxy snickered, dodging a rusted sedan corpse half buried in rubble up ahead. Fair point that. Reckon they were probably just chuffed to bits over having another easy way to shoehorn fistfuls of cheap gore into the multiplexes. Makes sense, Tommy said. You know what we should do after we put this latest zombie crap behind us? We should write our own undead epic. Zero rolled his eyes. Oh yeah, I'm sure that's just what everybody will be clamoring for once the dust settles. Another bloody zombie road trip across the apocalypse. I'm on about a big bloody showstopper, maybe a musical even. Tommy scratched at the bristly growth of beard along his jawline. Yeah, we open with a group of punk bands drifting from squat to squat, scamming every open mic for a bit of petty cash to keep them going till their next gig. Naturally, Roxy said. Right, so they're on the road scouting their big break, looking to put their mark on the musical map and finally get that dream gig. But, Tommy paused. Just when things are coming up aces for the first time in forever, Some shadowy big pharma conglomerate leaks its latest bioweapon on the world. Shades of Romero there. I'm liking where you're headed with this, Zero said. And just like that, everywhere these poor punks turn, they're dodging drooling hordes of zombies chewing their way across the blasted hellscape our worlds become. They fight, they struggle, maybe lose one or two along the way as they scrounge for enough firepower to keep the deadheads at bay. Big sweeping action sequences scored to some punk bangers, Roxy said, gunning them through an intersection strewn with wreckage. All building to the final confrontation at some seedy dive where they make their heroic stand, once and for all. Title it up in big bloody neon lights, why don't you? Zero said. Tommy grinned. I can see it now, punks versus zombies. A little on the nose, ain't it? It's got all the subtlety. Hollywood's good for these days and then some, Roxy said. Besides, don't try and tell me you wouldn't plunk down your last tin of baked beans to see our boys on the big screen. Zero exhaled a weary sigh, shaking his head. You two really think anyone will have much stomach left for zombie schlock once all's said and done here, though. Seems like after living the nightmare for real, the last thing anyone would want is watching a replay on the big screen. Roxy pursed her lips. I don't know about that. It could be a safe outlet to work through the trauma. Look at all the war movies. Why should our go at the dying Earth be any different, eh? Think she's got a point there, Tommy said. Even after being in the darkest trenches, part of us still craves a bit of catharsis, you know? Like being able to look our worst nightmares right in the eye once it's over, and still give the bastards a great big middle finger. Could be you're onto something, Zero said. A small strip mall complex crested up ahead. A few shambling figures lurched through the rubble-strewn parking lots. Tommy felt his chuckles die in his throat, the familiar weight of reality settling back over all of them once more. Roxy's lips set as she wrestled the steering wheel, bearing them forward. The mall complex loomed ahead, a jumbled ruin of burnt-out storefronts and shattered glass. Hold up. Tommy leaned forward, squinting through the smeared windshield at the battered metal signpost jutting up from the debris field. 16th Street Mall. This must be the place. Roxy drew them to a stop just short of the barricade sealing off the pedestrian-only promenade. Looks like the only way in will be on foot from here on out. All right, Zero said. We all set here? Let's do this. Roxy slid from the van, shouldering her machete. Zero followed suit, slamming the door shut and marching on ahead. Roxy and Tommy walked behind him, weapons in hand. Keep your eyes open, Zero said. Let's get what we need and get the hell out of here. No heroics, yeah? Got it, Tommy said. Chapter 62. The shattered storefronts of the 16th Street Mall yawned before them. Shards of glass and twisted metal crunched underfoot as Tommy stepped inside. Zero cut through the shadows with his flashlight, his rifle at the ready. Could be squatters holed up in any one of these shops just waiting to jump our asses. Roxy gestured with her machete to the shredded awnings and knocked over planters flanking the closest storefront. Well, if they are, looks like they've already picked this place clean. Along the arcade of shops and cafes, metal grates and security doors hung mangled from their tracks, many torn open from the inside as much as the exterior. Upended shelving units and display cases lay strewn amid the rubble. Tommy peeked through one of the gaping doorways, shotgun at the ready. Inside, the floor was a minefield of shattered glass, rags, and blood. He pulled back, grimacing. Roxy moved to check the next storefront. Her blade gleamed dully where the muted daylight slanted in through periodic breaks in the overhead skylights. Don't get too comfortable, Rox, Zero said. We don't know who's hiding in here. Or what? Tommy said. Roxy smirked. Don't be so dramatic, Tommy. It's either going to be people or deadheads. Tommy shrugged. Could be feral dogs. Or super mutants, Zero said. Roxy sighed. A dull patter like rainfall echoed up ahead, pinging off the detritus scattered across the broken tiles. Tommy tensed until he realized it was a trickle of water seeping from a burst pipe somewhere above, dripping onto the heaps of plaster and splintered wood. He caught himself craning his neck to peer deeper into the vaulted shadows encircling the cavernous space. Another furtive scurrying sounded nearby, cutting through the ambiance of dripping water and creaking infrastructure. Tommy wheeled as he tried to pinpoint the threat's location, but his search came up empty. Easy there, Tiger, Roxy said, pausing just long enough for Zero to catch up before forging ahead once more. Probably just a bloody rat is all. Place like this, you're bound to find them looking to scrounge whatever scraps they can. Zero grunted as his heavy boots crunched through the rubble. Tommy swallowed hard, the sickly tang of mildew clinging to the inside of his throat, the cloying silence amplifying every stray sound. He flinched as Roxy's machete slashed through a taut canvas awning, strung across the next storefront. The brittle material collapsed inward, revealing yet another stretch of shattered glass and overturned shelving inside. I keep expecting a biker gang to turn up and cause havoc, Roxy said. Tommy shrugged. Maybe there's a helicopter on the roof. Zero shook his head. You joke, but we need to keep our eyes and ears open. You never know what's around the next corner. Maybe we should turn around. Not scared, are we, Tommy boy? Maybe, but this place is stripped and we need to find meds for Mickey. He stopped and met their eyes. And I don't know about the rest of you, but another night like last night is liable to finish pushing me over the edge. Damn it, Tommy, Zero said. We're not going until we've made a full sweep. Tommy glanced over his shoulder. You sure that's the best idea? We're pressing on. Tommy managed a terse nod and fell into step behind Zero. They marched onward, their footfalls sloughing through layers of decaying refuse and structural debris. The once pristine storefronts continued yielding nothing. Gutted mannequins in poses of frozen hysteria, tattered sale banners sagging across shredded clothing racks and checkout counters. Tommy tried not to dwell on the bloodstains painting the concrete floors, nor the drag marks and scuff patterns. The shadows seemed to swell and subside in waves as they ventured deeper. Roxy halted, jutting out a hand as Tommy nearly plowed into her back. Hold up! You hear that? Zero tilted his head. Tommy heard it, a faint scuffling somewhere off in the shadows far ahead. We've wasted enough time here already, Roxy said. Zero sighed. You're not wrong about that, Rox. I'd suggest we bug out. Zero hoisted his rifle higher, every movement measured and precise as he headed in the direction of the main intersection. Tommy fell into step behind him, any pretense of stealth now abandoned in favor of getting back to the van. They pressed on at a quickened pace, desperate to leave them all behind. Relief washed over Tommy as the outer facade came into view. He picked up his pace, eager to be back under the open sky. A sharp bang echoed from somewhere in the distance, making them all flinch. What the hell was that? Roxy said under her breath. Zero shook his head, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the shadows. Could have been anything from a car backfiring to a gunshot. Or something worse, Tommy said, his shotgun suddenly feeling inadequate. We're almost out. Zero waved them forward with his rifle. Let's not linger to find out. They hurried out into the open-air plaza fronting the mall, greeted by hazy morning light and a gentle breeze. Tommy took a deep breath, filling his lungs to dispel the stale, moldering stench. Ugh, what a damn waste of time, Roxy said, not even so much as a bottle of aspirin. Zero grunted in agreement as he surveyed the area, eventually settling his gaze on the Minx van. So what now? Roxy asked as they strode towards the van. We gonna head back or keep pressing on? We need to find something for Mickey, Tommy said. Poor bastard's going through hell. Zero sighed. Tommy glared at him. Got something to say? Just that you reap what you sow. What's that supposed to mean? It means we shouldn't be the ones out here risking our asses because a drummer got himself tangled in plez. Whatever, man. We head back to the others, Zero said. Get back on the road, there's still a long way to go. I can't do that. I said I'd help him. And you tried, we all did. But unless you can magic some of that stuff out your ass, we're done here. Maybe we just do a couple more sweeps nearby, Roxy said. There's bound to be something. Zero gave a nod. All right, but we keep it quick. We'll take a look around. But if we don't find anything in the next hour, we're leaving. Tommy held out a hand. Deal. Chapter 63. They piled back into the van, Roxy taking the wheel again. She nudged the vehicle back out onto the semi-cleared streets. Through the streaked windshield, Tommy watched the remains of downtown Denver drifting past in a blur. The van rolled through an intersection, the gentle swaying of a tattered banner hanging from a light pole, the only sign of movement. What the hell happened here? Tommy said. Zero glanced back at him. The globalists happened. This is their doing. All of it. It's just so quiet. Yeah? Maybe they came in, stripped the place of the dead, shipped the living off to FEMA camps? Why, though? If this is a conspiracy, I don't understand the motivation. Zero sighed. Depopulation, Tommy boy. The elites want a world of 500 million. That means less than 1 in 16 get to live. That still doesn't explain why. Don't encourage him, Roxy said. He's already tried to tell me this crap at length. She smirked and lowered her voice. Oh, you're so naive. You're such a slave. You need to take the red pill. Whatever, man. Zero leaned back and smirked. Tommy's starting to open his eyes, aren't you, Tommy? I don't know. Seems a bit far-fetched. You really think there's some plan for a global government? Damn, they can't even get local government right. That's because there are too many of us to enslave, or at least there were. Tommy leaned towards the window, a vaulted facade rising in the near distance. What is that place? Looks like a train station or something. Union Station, Zero said. We should head there, might be worth checking out. Roxy peered through the streaked windshield, arching an eyebrow. You thinking they could have had a pharmacy inside or something? Tommy gave a shrug. Makes sense to me. Could be worth a look, Zero said. Big place like that was probably overrun in the initial wave. Lots of folks looking to bail on the city. If it hasn't already been picked clean, Roxy said. Zero nodded. And if it has, no great loss except for the time searching it. She steered them around the roadblocks and detours, eventually guiding the van up along the edifice's approach. The street opened into a grand pedestrian plaza encircling the station entrance, accented by ornate stonework and decorative planters. Even in its present state, the station's elaborate archways and intricate brickwork still managed to exude a sense of grandeur. Roxy killed the engine. This is our stop. Grab what you need. With weapons at the ready, they climbed down from the van and approached the shadowed entrance with caution. Zero swept his rifle over their surroundings in a slow arc as they pressed forward, checking the nooks and crannies around the entrance. Clear so far, but keep sharp, people. Tommy's boots scuffed over the shattered glass littering the ground as they entered the terminal's main lobby. A light haze of chalky miasma hung in the air. He edged forward cautiously, the barrel of his shotgun swinging from side to side as he strained to detect any movement or sound. His boots kicked through a scattering of abandoned luggage and debris, half-crushed satchels, crumpled paperbacks, and random articles of clothing that had seemingly been shed in haste. Silence pressed in from all sides, the only sounds being the thud of their footfalls and their own panting breaths. Damn, Roxy said, her machete sweeping aside a pile of office chairs. Looks like this place got the worst of whatever went down. Keep it tight, Rox, Zero said, slinking forward with his rifle raised. They could still be lurkers hunkered down somewhere in here. Tommy winced at the prospect, his gaze washing over the balconies and alcoves ringing the lobby's upper level. Distant thumps and pattering sounds filtered through the stillness, disorienting him as his head whipped around, unable to locate their source. Gripping his shotgun tighter, he forced himself to scan methodically, sweeping from left to right, waiting, watching, listening. Roxy's gaze met Tommy's, a silent exchange passing between them as a tight, humorless smile creased the corner of her mouth. Tommy ventured forward, Roxy in the lead with Zero sweeping behind, covering their rear. Well, Roxy said, if there were any meds in this place, I'd wager they're long gone by now. Keep it moving, Zero said. We check the premises thoroughly, then get the hell out. Tommy couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. His finger tensed around the trigger guard as his eyes strained through the shadows for any hint of danger. He jumped as a flurry of movement exploded out from a dark alcove nearby, just disturbed birds bursting forth from their roost. Tommy held his breath until the frantic flapping subsided and silence reigned once more. Zero raised his rifle, peering through his scope. You see anything? Tommy asked. Zero gave a shake of his head before gesturing towards the far end of the concourse. Shipping and receiving area up ahead. My money's on that being our best shot at finding anything useful left. Tommy adjusted his grip as they crossed the atrium towards a set of double doors, or what was left of them. The metal frames were mangled outward, evidence of a mass exodus in a state of panic. The pockmarked tiles surrounding the shattered doorway only fueled Tommy's grim imaginings of the sheer mayhem that must have unfolded here. Behind them, Roxy's boots scuffed to a halt. Hold up. She raised an arm, machete leveled forward as she strained to make out whatever had caught her eye. Tommy froze in place, watching as she made a series of hand signals he didn't understand. Zero responded with quick gestures of his own before taking a knee next to Tommy and waving him down as well. "What's up?" "People," Roxy said. "We should speak to them, maybe." "No, we're leaving, now." Before Tommy could protest, a crash echoed from the shipping area. Roxy bolted back the way they'd come with Zero close behind. Tommy sprinted after them. More noises, grunts, shuffling feet, indistinct shouts. Metal clanged against metal. Roxy led them in a zigzag pattern through the debris field of the main lobby, using overturned furniture and shattered pillars for cover. Shots ricocheted off the stone floor nearby, spurring them into an even faster retreat. "There," Zero said. "Head for the side exit." Tommy lengthened his stride, ignoring the burning in his lungs. More gunfire, whip cracks of noise that sent plumes of masonry blasting skyward all around them. He tucked his head as they sprinted for the exit. Roxy flung the door open, and they tumbled outside, slamming it shut behind them. She began piling debris in front of it, while Zero and Tommy took up defensive positions, weapons trained on the entrance. "They went out the side door," a loud voice said. "Let's go, go." Roxy finished reinforcing the door just as it shuddered from the first impacts on the other side. "Here they come. Get ready." Tommy braced himself, shotgun leveled at the fracturing wooden frame. His finger tensed on the trigger as one of the steel kickplates started to bend inward. "Wait for it." Zero lined up his sight. "Let them commit, then open up." But the banging stopped. The door remained still. "What are they doing?" Zero narrowed his eyes. "Wait." "Over there." Roxy pointed to another doorway. "Move, move." Zero pushed Tommy towards an alcove along the building's side, returning fire as armed men surged through. Roxy sprinted ahead, using her machete to cut a path through a tangle of waist-high debris fencing them in. Tommy followed in her wake, with Zero covering their retreat. They vaulted over the barricade, bullets kicking up dust around them. Ahead loomed a trash-strewn alleyway bracketed by the looming facades of office towers. "This way." They pounded down the alley, leaping over refuse and broken glass. An intersection opened up ahead, but a high chain-link fence blocked their exit. "Boost me up," Roxy said. Zero obliged, using his shoulders to vault her up and over the top in one smooth motion. Roxy landed in a crouch on the other side, machete at the ready as she scanned for threats. "All clear over here, but we've got to move, people." Tommy scrambled over next with Zero's help. Zero hauled himself up right behind, slinging his rifle over the top and dropping gracelessly on the other side. "Come on this way." Roxy took off at a lurching sprint through another alley. Around the next corner, a ground-level loading dock offered a shallow channel of cover. Roxy slid down into it belly first, swinging her machete in a tight arc as she led them on. Gunshots cracked behind them, pockmarking the concrete a few feet to Tommy's right. He flinched, hunching lower and quickening his pace. "We're not going to be able to keep this up," Tommy shouted over Zero's return fire. "They know the terrain better than us." "Head for the next intersection," Roxy said without breaking stride. "Proper street on the other side. We can double back towards the van." A thunderous boom shook the ground beneath them as something detonated. Tommy covered his head, feeling the concussive force of impacts all around him. "Look out!" Zero shoved Tommy aside as a bullet ricocheted off the brickwork next to him. Tommy blinked away grit, squinting towards the intersection Roxy had mentioned. Roxy was already scaling the barricade, using the wrecked remains of an overturned dumpster as a makeshift ladder. Tommy and Zero scrambled up behind her, clawing their way over the other side to find a mercifully clear street, waiting beyond. "Let's lose these assholes and get back to the van." Tommy's lungs burned as they sprinted down the empty street towards their van. He risked a glance over his shoulder, no sign of their pursuers. Tommy willed his aching legs faster, Zero and Roxy flanking him. A piercing crack split the air, followed by a whip crack of bullets zinging off the asphalt around them. "Down!" Zero pushed Tommy to the sidewalk, as more shots peppered a parked car further up the street. Zero rolled for cover behind its engine block, returning fire with controlled bursts. Tommy scrambled behind a dumpster, chest heaving as he peered over the rim. He couldn't see the shooters, but the gunfire's origin seemed to be coming from a rooftop somewhere above them. Zero shifted his aim and let off more shots. Brick shattered and glass exploded in a shower that sent the rooftop shooters scrambling. "Go, go, go!" Zero waved them forward in short rushes from one piece of cover to the next. A searing graze scratched along his calf as Tommy launched himself behind an abandoned newspaper box. He grunted, adrenaline numbing the pain as he hugged the sidewalk and crawled, Roxy right behind him. Tommy blinked away smoke, the acrid stench of smoldering debris clawing at his throat. Bullets whipped past overhead as he scrambled on his belly. "We're sitting ducks out here," Roxy shouted from a nearby doorway. She motioned towards a fire escape crisscrossing the building's brickwork above them. "Up there, we can get to the rooftops." Zero blind fired a few more suppressing bursts before giving a terse nod. "Do it. Tommy, get your ass in gear." Tommy hauled himself to his feet and sprinted for the rusted metal ladder, Zero providing cover fire to keep their pursuers pinned down. He scrambled up the fire escape's rungs, pulling himself over the railed platform above and crouching behind the bulwark. Roxy came next, shimmying up with her machete tucked under one arm. Then Zero dashed for the ladder himself. "Hurry it up," Roxy said. With a grunt, Zero heaved himself over the railing, panting hard. "Let's move." They scrambled higher, circling up another level until reaching the roof access door. Tommy barreled through, shotgun leading into the open-aired maze of vents and piping snaking across the rooftop. Roxy came through next, followed by Zero. Tommy scanned their surroundings, squinting against the hazy daylight. A wide alley separated them from the next row of buildings. Roxy came through next, followed by Zero. Tommy forced his legs into motion, charging headlong across the roof and leaping the gap. He landed hard, the impact shooting up through his knees as he stumbled to keep his footing. Zero joined them a split second later, wheezing from the exertion, but showing no sign of slowing down. Tommy didn't dare look back as he raced after Roxy, who was already vaulting a piping bundle and angling towards a lower tier of rooftops beyond. More pops and cracks split the air around them as bullets zipped past, their pursuers having caught up and found a fresh angle of attack. "This way," Roxy banked hard, scrabbling down a slanting section of roof and sliding to a stop next to a gaping ventilation shaft. Tommy followed her down into the dark hole, the thin metal grating clattering under his boots as he landed in a crouch. Zero hit the floor behind them, letting out a wheezing rasp as he covered the breach with his rifle. Roxy pointed down the vent tunnel, then took off in a crouched run. Tommy fell in behind her, barrel raised and every muscle tensed. The vent shaft corkscrewed and branched off in multiple directions, their path illuminated by occasional slits. Tommy focused on keeping Roxy's heels in his sights, the dull clang of their footfalls echoing in the constricted space. Part of the vent caved in just ahead of him, fresh daylight spilling in, along with a hail of rubble and debris. Roxy hit the brakes, hunkering down and waving Tommy and Zero back as dented ductwork cratered in front of them. They backtracked to where a cross-vention allowed them to exit via a horizontal vent slat opening onto another roof. One by one, they emerged blinking against the afternoon glare. They were now several blocks west of Union Station, back in the shadow of the high-rises closing in on all sides. "That should have bought us some distance," Roxy said between labored breaths. "But they'll pick up our trail again soon enough. We need to get off the high ground if we're to make it back to the van." Zero surveyed their new surroundings before giving a nod. "She's right. Let's use that alley over there, stick to the side streets and double back under cover. With any luck, we can shake those assholes for good." Tommy's thigh muscles burned from their endless sprinting, but the thought of collapsing into the van spurred him forward as they headed for the alley at a jog. They wove through a labyrinth of crumbling side streets. Piles of rubble and tangled debris barred their path at every turn. They slowed only long enough to carefully pick their way through before continuing their advance. At last, the hulking archways of Union Station came into view ahead. Tommy's chest burned as they neared their destination, senses on high alert. Weapons raised, they crept the final stretch in a half-crouch, swiveling to scan every doorway and alley mouth for any sign of another ambush. But the ravaged street remained still, the quiet broken only by their ragged breathing. Tommy skidded to a halt, his mouth dropping open. The van stood smoldering in ruin, a blackened, gutted carcass. Shattered glass and twisted metal. Movement flickered from deep inside, shadows dancing across the smoke-belching interior, as flames consumed the van from within. "You have got to be kidding me." Chapter 63. The smoldering wreckage of the van hit Tommy like a sledgehammer to the gut. His eyes tracked the tendrils of oily smoke unfurling into the air as the acrid stench of melted plastic and scorched metal assaulted his senses. Roxy's cry cut through the stillness, her machete clattering to the ground as she crumpled to her knees. Roxy, we can't stay here. Tommy scanned the buildings around them. They could still be around. Zero swept his rifle in controlled arcs. He's right, we need to move. Now. But Roxy remained frozen, shoulders slumped. What's the point? It's over. Tommy crouched beside her. Don't talk like that. We know the way we came in. We just need to head back out of the city on foot. She shook her head, eyes glistening. It'll take us hours, maybe more. Then we better get started. Zero's terse command cut between them. Zero's right. Together, they hauled Roxy to her feet, supporting her weight as she swayed unsteadily. Distant voices rode the breeze. We can't stay here, Tommy said. With effort, he guided Roxy forward, one faltering step at a time, putting distance between themselves and the van's remains. Roxy's haunted gaze remained fixed over her shoulder. Tommy understood her anguish on a visceral level. The van was more than just a vehicle to her. It was a tangible link to everything she'd lost. Her former life, her bandmates, her dreams. He blinked, forcing himself to look ahead as they retraced their path back through the city. Every shadow seemed to conceal a fresh threat, every distant rumble raising the hairs on the back of his neck. Without the van, they were exposed. We've lost so much, Zero said. Supplies, ammo, meds, tools, maps. At least we still have Layla's van, Tommy said. We can regroup with them, come up with a plan to resupply. As they pressed on, the shadows began to lengthen. Tommy's calves burned with every step, the weight of his exertions crashing over him in waves. The staccato blast of Zero's rifle broke the silence. Tommy's head whipped around, following Zero's line of fire to the twitching deadhead now lying inert on the sidewalk. Tommy gestured toward a mangled heap of metal that might once have been a vehicle. Let's take a breather, just for a minute. He sank to the ground, grateful for even this small respite as he leaned back against the rusted frame. At the first telltale scuff of boots on pavement, every muscle in his body tensed. They're still on our trail, Zero said. Tommy's pulse thundered in his ears as he hauled himself upright once more, fingers clenched around his shotgun. They had to keep moving, or be consumed by the darkness closing in all around them. The road stretched before them, each plodding step through the debris-strewn streets sapping what little strength Tommy had left. The faint groan reached his ears. He tensed, shotgun raised, eyes sweeping their surroundings for the source of the sound. A shambling figure emerged from a shattered storefront. It meandered aimlessly, head lolling from side to side. Looks like we've got company. You up for dealing with it, Rox? Zero patted his rifle. I need to conserve ammo. Roxy snorted. Leave it be. Things just wandering around like it ain't got a clue. For now, maybe. Tommy watched the vacant creature. In its aimless shambling, it seemed so pathetic, a hollow mockery of the living. His throat constricted, mouth dry. When was the last time he'd had a drink? Better take care of it, Zero said, gesturing toward the ghoul. Before it gets any big ideas. I'm not wasting the effort, just leave it. Can't risk it drawing more, Tommy said. Zero leveled his rifle, the barrel tracking the ghoul's path. I'll do it then. No sense wasting ammo when... The creature's head whipped around, milky eyes locking onto Tommy. An inarticulate snarl escaped its jaws. For a moment, Roxy balked, her machete clutched loosely at her side. But then her expression hardened. She met the creature head-on, sidestepping its grasping hands before sweeping her blade in a brutal arc. The edge sank deep, cleaving through withered flesh with a wet crunch. Its head tumbled free, as its body pitched forward to sprawl at Roxy's feet. She glared at the twitching remains for a long moment before turning back to Zero, her expression unreadable. Happy now? More groans reached Tommy's ears. His gaze tracked over Roxy's shoulder toward their source. Several more zombies had emerged from the surrounding wreckage, no doubt roused by the disturbance. Let's move, Tommy said. Roxy broke into a jog. Zero flanked them, keeping his rifle raised and ready as the first wave lurched into pursuit. This way ain't looking so good, Zero said. We should cut off road, lose them quick while we still can. Screw that, Roxy said. You really want to get turned around in that maze? We've got enough problems without getting lost. Tommy's lungs burned from the exertion, but he couldn't argue with Roxy's point. At least on the road, they knew which way they'd come. She's right, we stay the course. Zero's jaw tightened, but he gave a curt nod. You're the boss. Tommy moved in a half jog. Sweat clung to his forehead, trickling down the back of his neck. Churning legs, burning lungs. It was only a matter of time before those things caught up. But they couldn't stop, couldn't slow down. Ahead stood a row of squat buildings, their facades pitted and streaked, a convenience store and drugstore. There, he gestured toward the storefronts with the barrel of his shotgun. We should check them out. Roxy's pace faltered as her gaze followed his. Forget it, Zero said, pausing only long enough to swing his rifle in a tight arc. Every second we slow down is another we're giving those deadheads a chance to catch up. I'm with T, Roxy said. That's why we came in here, remember? For meds for Mickey. Fine, let's do it, but be quick about it. Thanks, man, Tommy said. You hang back, cover the entrance. We'll sweep through, grab whatever we can carry, and get moving. Zero glanced back up the road and nodded. The convenience store's dim interior spread out before them, a labyrinth of shadowed aisles and overturned shelving. Shafts of pallid daylight filtered through grimy stretches of window, casting stark beams amidst the gloom. Hands slick around his shotgun, Tommy advanced along the first aisle as Roxy angled off in the opposite direction. Skittering noises reverberated all around them as they probed deeper into the store's interior. Tommy swept his weapon in short arcs with each fresh sound, straining to pierce the pervasive gloom. A muffled thump echoed from somewhere in the bowels of the store. Tommy stood, his ears straining to listen. Only silence answered. Tommy pivoted toward the rear of the storeroom, or perhaps an outdoor loading bay. Roxy reappeared as he approached, shaking her head. The twist of her lips told him everything he needed to know. Not so much as a crumb remained. Tommy gestured onward, toward the next set of swinging doors leading further back. Roxy fell in behind him as he nudged one open, its hinges protesting with a shrill squeal. They emerged into a spacious loading area, ringed by towering shelving units and stacked pallets of rotted boxes. A rancid stench hung in the still air. Stifling the need to gag, his gaze landed on a towering shelving unit, its lowest tier filled with several distended plastic bundles. He edged closer, taking in their bulging forms, the unmistakable shapes of several loaves of packaged bread. Tommy stooped, seizing one of the rock-hard loaves, its crusts mottled in black. Roxy placed a hand on his. They're moldy. I know, I was just checking. Roxy shrugged, already turning on her heel and heading back the way they'd come. He followed Roxy out, squeezing back through the screeching doors. When they stepped out, Zero turned to them. Any luck? Nothing, Roxy said. She marched past him toward the adjoining facade bearing the pharmacy's signage. Tommy hurried to catch up with her, easing through the shattered interior in a half-crouch with his shotgun before him. The drugstore's shelves and displays had been thoroughly ransacked. Glass crunched underfoot as Tommy swept his gaze over the debris-strewn floor in search of anything overlooked. Countless emptied pill jars and plastic bottles lay scattered everywhere. God damn it, Roxy smacked her hand down on the counter. Hey, we tried, right? That's not nothing. She rushed past him, heading to a closed door. She shoved the door open. The ratcheting of the pharmacy's rusted spigot reached Tommy's ears. He followed the sound to the cramped staff bathroom, finding Roxy hunched over the porcelain sink as water spluttered forth in a trickle. She straightened as he hovered in the doorway, already pivoting to make room for him as he sluiced double handfuls of the water into his mouth. I'll get Zero in here, Roxy said. We should fill up whatever we can find. She pushed past him out the door. Zero arrived and drank. Once he'd had his fill, Tommy rummaged through the surrounding wreckage, piecing together a collection of baby bottles. Fill 'em up, Tommy boy. Tommy set about filling the bottles. His mind drifted to Sean, and he shook the thought away before it could fester. With the bottles filled, Tommy re-emerged to find Zero crouched behind an overturned stack of milk crates. We've got to move. What's up? Roxy asked. Saw some movement down the street a bit ago. Don't think they've pinged us yet, but it's only a matter of time before... His words choked off as a shambling group of zombies lurched around the mouth of the alleyway. Zero raised his rifle, sighting down the barrel in a blur of motion. Roxy caught his elbow before he could squeeze the trigger. See what they do. Ammo. Remember? Zero nodded, his gaze fixed on the lumbering creatures. It wasn't until the horde had moved on that Zero spoke. "We're burning daylight." He gestured towards the open street before them. "Let's move, before any more show up." Tommy hoisted his shotgun and fell in behind Roxy as she took the lead once more. Her boots scuffed in an unsteady rhythm ahead of him, her shoulders slumped. Zero's wheezing breaths echoed from the rear. Tommy glanced back at him. "You okay, man?" "Can't stop," Zero said. "If we stop now." The implication remained unspoken. "We're not gonna make it," Roxy said, hugging herself. "We're gonna get lost. We're gonna die out here. Never should have left the warehouse." "Rox," Tommy said, "it'll be fine." "No, Tommy, it won't. It'll be dark soon. We're never getting out before nightfall." A ragged chorus of fresh groans seemed to swell. Tommy followed her gaze over his shoulder as zombies flooded into the street ahead. What had begun as scattered pursuit was now nothing short of a gathering tide in their wake. Wave after wave of desiccated bodies propelling themselves forward on ruined limbs and raw hunger. Too many for them to outrun. "We've got no choice," Zero said. "Take a stand here and make our play. Cut a path through." Tommy firmed his grip around his shotgun, the weight of the weapon suddenly feeling cumbersome. A pang of regret lanced through him for the simple wooden bat he'd left behind at the warehouse. Squaring his stance, he leveraged the shotgun's haft like a cudgel as Roxy regained her senses, rising to rejoin the fray. Zero's rifle barked out percussive shots as he cleared a path. But still, the zombies came. Tommy swung out with the solid hunk of steel at the first rank. Gore sprayed in a concussive wave, but the blows did little to check the horde's momentum. Roxy's machete swept out, cleaving a zombie in two. Black ichor fountained in its wake as she pivoted, scything down another with brutal finality. The world seemed to narrow to a maelstrom of roiling bodies, gnashing teeth, an indescribable stench. Tommy lost himself to the frenzied rhythm of strike and evade, each impact jarring up through the length of his shotgun's barrel. Bone splintered, viscera ruptured, and still they kept coming. Zero's rifle vented one final shriek before it fell into silence, its payload expended. "I'm out." Seizing the barrel in one hand, he transitioned the weapon into a makeshift bludgeon, swinging out with grunts of exertion to clear their flank. A blunt force caught Tommy's temple in a glancing blow that sent agony stabbing through his skull. He staggered, vision whiting out, only to be sent sprawling as Roxy tackled him. They tumbled in a heap, Tommy losing his weapon as the relentless crush of bodies surged towards them. Tommy gasped for air as he scrabbled backwards. He glimpsed Zero through a gap in the heaving throng, lips peeled back in primal fury as he hurled himself bodily into the breach. Twisting, flailing limbs. The horde closed around him, whipping him from view as if swept up in a riptide. "Get up," Zero roared, swinging the rifle stock in a wide arc, smashing through the seething bodies. For a moment, Tommy saw a gap in the press, an escape route. But the zombie mass flowed around Zero like a river of decay, pulling him back under the ravenous tide. "Zero." Roxy's scream cut through the chaos. Mustering every ounce of strength, Tommy lurched upright, flailing against the groping hands. He caught a glimpse of Zero vanishing beneath the mob. "No!" Tommy threw his weight towards the gap Zero had briefly opened. His boots found purchase against a yielding body, and he pushed. Putrid jaws gaped, yellowed teeth gnashing for a chance to bite into his flesh. Tommy lashed out with fists, pounding his way clear. A fetid hand shot out, latching onto his jacket. Tommy spun, slobber flying from the thing's slack maw as it yanked him off balance. He threw an elbow, felt it crunch into bone. Roxy's machete flashed in the corner of his vision, then kept on rotating in a blur, severing the thing's arm at the elbow. Roxy was beside him then, her face set in a snarl as she carved a path through the teeming chaos. She leapt forward, slashing and chopping as she ducked the clutching hands. Roxy went down with a muffled cry as a tangle of limbs dragged at her legs. She shrieked, kicking out with her free leg to try and dislodge it. Tommy plunged in beside her, crushing the thing's wrist beneath his boot and yanking her back. Gore spilled forth as she ripped the blade free in a gout of stinking ichor. Tommy fended off another with desperate kicks, howling out a barrage of curses as his boot connected again and again. Finally, it slumped away. As they emerged from the throng, they found themselves utterly surrounded. There were hundreds of zombies. an inexorable wave bearing down on them from every direction. Tommy's gaze swept over the seething mass, searching for any sign of Zero or an escape route. A cold, creeping dread sank through his veins as the fading daylight ebbed. Shadows grew longer, darker. Night was falling fast, and with it, the stark realization that they would never make it back to the others before dark. Roxy slumped against him, pain and exhaustion clearly taking their toll. Tommy's eyes strained as he sought somewhere, anywhere, they could try to make a stand. The only alternative was being torn apart. To their left gaped the shattered remains of a clothing store, its dingy windows knocked inwards. The tiled entrance led into a shadowy interior. He gritted his teeth as he angled them in that direction. Tommy's boots crunched over broken glass as he half-carried, half-dragged Roxy through the shattered entrance. For a moment at least, the zombies hadn't noticed. They fell through a gap between a circular rack of tattered shirts and an overturned dresser. Time seemed to bleed away as Tommy hunched there in the broken shadows, his jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Distant thuds and muffled groans drifted in from outside. Tommy wanted nothing more than to give in to the weight dragging at his eyelids, to let the darkness take him. But he knew the moment he did, it would be over. Roxy breathed deeply from where she sprawled beside him, her face pale and slick with sweat. "We're going to die, aren't we?" "No, we can do this." "Zero's gone, we're not gonna make it." He shook his head fiercely. "Don't say that, we can do this, Rox." She gave a slight nod. Zero was a goner. They wouldn't be far behind. They couldn't fend the zombies off forever. They were just delaying the inevitable. He stared at the sliver of dying daylight, filtering in from outside. The deep purple of twilight almost swallowed by the encroaching blackness of full night. A faint clattering cut through the drifting groan. Tommy tensed, peering out into the gloom. Roxy went rigid beside him, her hand tightening around her blade's hilt. A shape materialized through the murky shadows, a hunched, shambling silhouette. He braced himself as the form drew closer. "You two look like hell." "Zero." Roxy leapt forward, embracing him. Tommy blinked. "You're alive." Zero slumped against the overturned dresser. Smears of viscera coated his shirt, turned almost black in the low light. "Thought I was a goner back there for sure. Never seen anything like that before." "How?" Roxy shook her head. The ghost of a smirk played over Zero's features. "I managed to roll under a truck, played dead until they moved on, stayed still as a damn corpse." "You son of a bitch," Tommy said. Roxy swiped a forearm across her brow. "Had me thinking you got chewed up back there." Zero waved a hand. "Gonna take more than those rot bags." "Glad you're still kicking, man." Tommy hauled himself upright, favoring his aching ribs. Zero grunted as he wiped blood off his rifle's barrel. "This sucks. Out of ammo." "Dropped my shotgun somewhere." Tommy winced, feeling the heat return to his temple where the glancing blow had caught him. "We can restock once we dig in somewhere," Zero said. "But first we need to move. Put some distance between us and that horde." Tommy nodded. "What's the plan?" "Too risky cutting across the street." Tommy frowned as he followed Zero's line of sight. "Over the rooftops." "Best we've got, let's get moving." Zero sprinted towards a rusty fire escape clanging against the facade of the adjacent building. He leapt, seizing the bottom rung before hauling himself up with a grunt. Tommy eyed the narrow landing at the top as Roxy followed Zero up. "Think you can make it?" he asked. She leveled him with a flat look. "Just get climbing." Tommy planted his foot against the brickwork and pushed off, straining to grasp the bottom rung. Pain swelled through his biceps as his body weight bore down on his freshly extended arms. But he managed to lock his elbows, muscles juddering with the strain as he started to climb. Around them, the chorus of groans echoed along the street. Upon reaching the landing, Zero motioned him on. With Roxy between them, they continued their ascension, muscles screaming with every climbing motion. Metal rattled beneath their boots as they reached the roof access hatch. Zero levered the hatch open, squinting back down the way they'd come. "Move it, people." Tommy squeezed through first, finding himself spilled out onto the soot streaked rooftop under a canopy of steel girders and vented ductwork. Groans and shuffling steps multiplied in the cramped space between the two buildings as more converged, beady eyes searching. Tommy moved past them, boots crunching across the debris-strewn rooftop as he closed in on the opposite edge. Roxy and Zero followed, moving low and quiet. "Damn it, that's too wide a gap," Roxy said, peering down. The adjoining building stood in darkness, looming just a few feet away across the gap. Zero gauged the distance before turning to face them. No choice. Either we try to clear this, or we turn around and head back into that mess. Tommy stole a glance down to the street. "Don't really like our odds doing that." Zero nodded. "Which is why it's this way or nothing." Roxy squared her shoulders. "Get a running start. Don't pull any stunts." At Zero's signal, they turned and sprinted toward the opposite edge. Tommy hit the opposing rooftop in an ungainly tumble, gravel tearing at his knees and palms as he went skidding across the abrasive surface. He stayed low, tracking Zero and Roxy as they followed. Tommy scrambled to his feet, following Zero along the creaking spine of the building as they ran a zigzagging path between vents and rusting air conditioning units. Stale wind buffeted Tommy's hair as he ran, carrying with it the stench of decay. At last they reached the opposite ledge at the end of the street, Zero lingering at the precipice as he surveyed the 10-foot drop below. He turned, giving a curt nod. "Ready?" When no response came, Tommy risked a look over his shoulder. "Rox," Tommy said, "you all right?" She blinked. Zero sucked in a breath. "We're out of time. Stay behind. You're dead. Both of you." Tommy turned and jumped, knees buckling as he hit the cracked pavement below. Zero was already sprinting, disappearing around a shadowed corner. Roxy joined Tommy's side as they ran. An engine rumbled in the distance. Headlights speared through the darkness, pinning Tommy in place. He lifted a hand to shield his eyes, vision slowly adjusting. The van screeched to a halt. "Get down," Zero aimed his rifle. "I'll keep them back." Tommy squinted at the van and laughed. "It's Layla." He grinned at the others. "Sweet zombie Jesus." Layla opened her window, waving them in with frantic motions. Zero vaulted into the vehicle, cramming himself onto the back seat as Roxy dived in after him. Tommy flung himself into the passenger seat, slamming the door as Layla floored the gas. "What happened?" Layla asked. "Where have you been?" Tommy's chest heaved. "Thank God you found us." Zero cleared his throat. "Anybody got some water? I'm dying over here." Chapter 64. Tires crunched over scattered debris as the van put downtown in the rearview mirror. Tommy sagged against the passenger seat, relief washing over him that they were still alive. But it was quickly replaced by a gnawing frustration. They'd risked everything for nothing. Layla glanced at him in the glow of the dashboard lights. "You all right?" He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I'm good. How's Mickey doing?" Layla's expression tightened. "He's been better. The withdrawal really seemed to hit him hard today." Tommy rubbed his throbbing temple, suddenly aware of the ache blossoming there. "Why'd you come after us?" He held up a hand. "Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful as hell, but we got worried when you didn't come back. Jimbo said you'd only planned on being gone a few hours at most." A mirthless laugh drifted from the back seat, where Roxy sat slumped. "Yeah, well, plans changed real fast." "What happened out there?" Layla asked. "You need me to get back to the other van?" "The van's gone," Roxy said, "burnt to a damn crisp." "Those sons of bitches torched it," Zero said. "Jesus." Layla bit down on her bottom lip. "What the hell happened back there?" Tommy sighed. "We went into the city to look for meds for Mickey. That van was our lifeline," Roxy cut in. "We lost everything, supplies, ammo, meds. They torched our ride and nearly took us out too," Zero said. Whoa, slow down," Layla said, holding up a hand. "One thing at a time. Tommy, what were you saying about finding meds?" "Right, yeah." Tommy nodded. "We hit up that mall downtown first, but it was stripped clean. You should have seen the place lie. Totally ransacked." "Like a war zone," Roxy said. "So much blood, oh, and then we went to check out Union Station next for any pharmacies." Zero shook his head. "Dumbest idea ever. That's where they ambushed us. Came out of nowhere, blazing away, full-on firefight." "You were attacked?" Layla's eyes went wide. "By who?" "No clue," Roxy said. "Just wanted to put some holes in us, that's for sure. Crazy bastards." Tommy leaned back. "Had to bolt, man. Took off across the rooftops with those deadheads shambling after us." Thought we were goners for sure. Wait, the zombies had guns? No, the people at the station had guns. Yeah, the deadheads came later, Roxy said. It was intense. Roxy went down for a sec there, Zero said. That blade of hers saved our asses more than once. I can't believe you're all still alive. What about the van? How'd you get separated from it? Tommy shrugged. We'd circled back around after shaking our hunters. The people, I mean. And that's when we saw it, Roxy cut in, her voice cracking. My van, completely torched. Goddamn shame. Zero's jaw clenched. Yeah, whoever those shooters were, they struck while we were getting our asses handed to us. I'm so sorry, you guys, Layla said. Don't be, Tommy said. You showing up when you did, that was a straight-up miracle. Roxy sighed, deflating back against the seat. You're not kidding. Another hour out there and we'd have been done for sure. Damn straight, Zero said, shifting to glance out the window. They lapsed into an exhausted silence as the van barreled down the empty road. Tommy stared out the windshield, replaying the events of the last several hours in his mind. So much had gone wrong so fast. How many more close calls could they endure before their luck ran out completely? A muscle ticked in Tommy's jaw as the hopelessness of their situation threatened to overwhelm him. He sagged back into the seat, wincing as fresh aches made themselves known. His temple throbbed where he'd caught that glancing blow. Hey, you're alive though. Layla's words cut the silence. All of you. A faint smile played at the corners of her mouth. That's what matters most right now, yeah? Damn rig's gonna be awful cozy with all of us packed in, Roxy said. Layla snorted. That's for sure, but we'll make it work. Zero leaned forward, bracing himself against the back of Layla's seat. Speaking of which, what's the plan from here? He paused, rolling a shoulder with a soft grunt. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but I could seriously use a few winks and a chance to get this Walker funk off me. Roxy grimaced down at her gore-splattered shirt and jeans, giving a violent, full-body shudder. Oh, I second that motion, believe me. A fresh change of clothes would be heavenly right about now. Zero sniffed, except our clothes were in the van. Well, ain't that just perfect? Layla kept her gaze focused ahead. I say when we get back, you should all try to grab some rest. Get ourselves sorted out properly when we've had some sleep. Agreed, Tommy said. We'll plan our next steps when we've rested. Roxy went to say something, then nodded. You're right, I'm spent. Zero nodded. Me too. Chapter 65. The warehouse loomed into view. Layla slowed and guided the van towards the shutters. Tommy peered through the windshield, eyes straining to make out the details as they came to a stop. Layla kept the engine idling as Tommy stepped out. His fingers found the catch to the heavy steel shutters, and he hauled them open just enough to slip through. He waved for the others to follow before sealing the warehouse once more. In the dimness, Tommy could just make out Jimbo seated across the way. Tommy swallowed against the tightness in his throat, shoving aside his own bone-deep weariness. He made his way towards the nest of bedrolls and makeshift pallets they'd assembled before leaving. A huddled form shifted in the gloom. Mickey? He cleared his throat. Hey man, it's me, it's Tommy. Mickey stilled for a moment. His eyes found Tommy in the darkness. Tommy crouched and placed a hand on Mickey's forehead. Tommy? He clasped Mickey's shoulder with a firm squeeze. Yeah, buddy. I'm here. The tremors racking his friend's slight frame were unmistakable. How are you holding up? Mickey's features twisted, as if the simple query pained him. His teeth ground together. How do you think? Right, dumb question. Tommy rocked back on his haunches. His gaze found Jimbo. You okay? What happened out there, dude? Tommy huffed out a bitter chuckle. You don't even want to know, believe me. Mickey twisted where he lay. Did you? His voice cracked, tapering off before he could give full voice to the question. Tommy's throat tightened. He shook his head. I'm sorry, Mickey. We didn't find anything. Not this time. His eyes bored into Tommy. What the hell, man? Mickey surged up from his pallet. You promised. Tommy took a step back, hands raised. I know. Just take it easy, okay? You've got to. Mickey was on him before the words could fully form. His bony fists hammered against Tommy's chest and shoulders with surprising force, each percussive blow sending bolts of pain through his already battered body. Tommy grunted, curling inward in a desperate attempt to cover up. "Mickey, stop, just stop." But the onslaught didn't relent. If anything, it only grew more ferocious, more unhinged. Zero streaked across Tommy's vision. One thick forearm whipped around Mickey's throat from behind, the other snaking down to trap his flailing limbs against his chest in a vice-like clinch. "Easy there, druggy boy. We're all on the same team here, remember?" Mickey bucked and twisted, thrashing in Zero's grasp. A litany of guttural snarls and inarticulate shrieks poured from his throat. Tommy could only cower, sheltering his head as the violence slowly bled from Mickey's struggles. He risked peering up to find Zero straddling Mickey, pinning him face down on the ground. "Don't hurt him." Zero gave the barest of nods. "You got it." Mickey's struggles tapered off until only the ragged breathing filled the warehouse. Tommy shifted onto his hip, sweat chilling against his skin. He could taste blood mingling with the salt on his lips. With shaking limbs, he pushed himself fully upright, wincing at each fresh ache. Zero sat back, keeping one knee braced firmly across Mickey's midsection as he worked the smaller man's wrist together with a length of nylon cord. "Just a precaution for now." Tommy nodded. He didn't trust his voice at that moment, didn't trust much of anything as his gaze landed on Mickey's prone form. I didn't mean," Mickey spoke in little more than a cracked whisper. Tommy eased closer, bracing himself on hands and knees so that their faces were mere inches apart. He could smell the sour tang of Mickey's fever, the faint musk of old sweat and sickness. It was a reek he knew all too intimately. "I know, buddy. I know you didn't. We'll get through this. Same as we always have. You and me, right?" Mickey managed a vague nod, his gaze already losing focus once more. "Thirsty?" He gave Mickey's shoulder a squeeze before clambering back to his feet. He made his way over to their supplies and rummaged through until he found a battered canteen. Unscrewing the cap, he crossed back over and knelt down beside Mickey. "Here, drink this slowly." He tilted the canteen to Mickey's cracked lips. Mickey gulped down the water at first, some dribbling down his chin until Tommy pulled it away. "Easy, easy. Take it slow." After Mickey had drained half the canteen, Tommy recapped it and set it aside. He turned his attention to the nylon cords binding Mickey's wrists behind his back. "I'm going to take this off, Mickey. But you need to promise me you're going to be cool, okay?" Mickey nodded. "I swear, man." With a couple of tugs, the cords loosened and fell away. "There you go. Let's get you comfortable. Try and rest." He rolled Mickey onto his back. "Thanks, man. I'm sorry about before." Tommy patted his arm. "Don't even worry about that right now. Just focus on resting up, okay?" "He's right," Layla said, "and he should take his own advice." She crossed over and crouched next to Tommy. "Why don't you go get cleaned up? Jimbo and I can look after Mickey for a while." Tommy opened his mouth to protest, but Layla shook her head. "You need to take a breather too after what you all went through back there. Just a little while, then you can rejoin us." He wanted to argue, to insist on staying by Mickey's side, but the pain and exhaustion couldn't be denied any longer. With a resigned nod, Tommy pulled himself back to his feet and took a couple of stumbling steps back. The weight of everything crashed down on him. Mickey, the outbreak, the deaths. His legs buckled and he crumpled to the ground, hot tears burning tracks down his cheeks. His chest heaved with ragged sobs. "I let him down, Lai. I promised Mickey and I couldn't. I've failed all of you." Gentle hands grasped his shoulder. "You did everything you could, Tommy. No one is faulting you for that. The world out there, it's not built for making or keeping promises anymore. All we can do is keep putting one foot in front of the other and holding on to hope." Tommy squeezed his eyes shut, struggling to regain control over his breathing. How are we supposed to do that? After today, we've got almost nothing left. We've got each other, and sometimes that has to be enough to keep us going, to keep us holding onto that last shred of hope that things can get better. He opened his eyes again, his gaze finding hers. "You really believe that? Even now?" She shrugged one shoulder. "I have to. The alternative is giving up completely, and I'm not ready for that, are you?" A tremor ran through Tommy, but he shook his head. No, I'm not." "Then we keep moving forward, Day by day, hour by hour if we have to. Layla stood and held a hand out to him. Starting by getting you taken care of. You're running on fumes, Tommy. First things first. Get cleaned up, change out of those filthy clothes, grab some food and rest. Then we can start figuring out our next moves, all right? With effort, Tommy grasped her hand and allowed her to pull him back up to his feet. You're right. Okay. He drew in a breath, forcing down the tide of despair, trying to resurface. I'm worried about Neve and Sean too, if they're even still. Don't go there, Layla cut him off. Not until we know for sure one way or the other. Until then, you've got to believe they're still out there somewhere waiting for us to find them. That's what will keep you going, Tommy, holding on to that hope. Okay, you've got a point, I hear you. He mustered up an attempt at a smile. A wash does sound pretty amazing right about now. That's the spirit. She pointed towards the far end of the warehouse where a rickety door stood ajar. Through there, you'll find the bathroom we've been using. Surprisingly, the plumbing still works fine. Not hot water, but hey, can't have everything. Thanks, Lai. Tommy yawned and ambled towards the van. He dragged out a towel and fresh clothes and made his way to the bathroom. Stripping out of his filthy, gore-splattered clothes, Tommy piled them in the sink and turned on the taps. He scooped up a handsful, rubbing it over his face and through his matted hair, with a relieved groan. While the water ran to gradually fill the basin, Tommy retrieved a tattered washcloth hanging nearby and worked on scrubbing the stubborn stains from his clothes. The cold water helped numb his aching hands as he kneaded and worked the fabric. Once the basin was full enough, he dumped his soaked clothes in to let them soak further, while he scrubbed himself down as best he could. By the time he finished and toweled himself off, his clothes were wet but free of blood or grime. He wrung them out and draped them over the sink to dry while he pulled on the fresh set of clothes. Tommy emerged from the bathroom to find most of the others already settled onto their bedrolls. Only Layla remained awake, keeping watch in the flickering lantern light. She looked up at Tommy's approach and offered him a smile, gesturing towards the vacant pallet. He lowered himself down with a muffled groan, his battered body reminding him of each tumble and impact it had endured throughout the day's trials. Layla's gaze drifted over towards the supplies as Tommy settled onto his pallet with a groan. You should eat something before you try to sleep. She stood and made her way over, rummaging through their dwindling stockpile until she found a couple of protein bars. Returning, she handed them to Tommy with a canteen of water. Not exactly a gourmet meal, but it'll help get your strength back up. Tommy accepted the provisions with a nod of thanks. Appreciate you looking after Mickey. Of course. Layla sat back down cross-legged. That's what we do. Look out for each other. We're family. Her eyes narrowed as she studied Tommy's face. You've got one hell of a mean bruise coming up on your forehead there. Tommy gingerly prodded at the knot with his fingertips, wincing. Yeah, just a little souvenir from our daring escape. He tore open one of the protein bars and took a bite, chewing slowly. How long do you think we should hole up here for? Layla asked. Tommy paused, the half-eaten bar resting on his knee. You want to stay? I don't know. She shrugged. It's the first place that's felt even remotely safe since this whole thing started. Maybe we could take a couple of days, let Mickey recover his strength before we move on again. Tommy shook his head, a weary sigh escaping his lips. I hear what you're saying, but we can't afford to dawdle too long. We're not even halfway across the country yet. Layla regarded him for a long moment. Okay, you're right. I've got the van's tank filled up, so if the others are good to go, we can head towards Kansas in the morning. How far is that? 5 or 6 hours if the roads are clear. Here's hoping. He finished off the protein bar and started on the second. But knowing our luck, we'll probably end up hitting some tornado. But then we might end up in some magical land and meet a talking scarecrow. Could be fun. Yeah, until the singing starts. He pulled up his blankets. I think we deserve a little peace and quiet for once on this trip. Ain't that the truth? Reminds me of that thing Henry Rollins said about the punk life in vans, moving from town to town. Tommy snorted. Yeah, well, after all this, I'm not sure I ever want to hit the road again, assuming there's anything left to tour by the time we're done here. There will be. We can't lose sight of that. Zombie Palooza is still out there, Tommy. It has to be. That's what we're fighting for. A wry grin tugged at the corners of Tommy's mouth. Zombie Palooza. Feels like a lifetime since Lake Tahoe. We'll make it happen. DIY all the way. But for now, you need to get some rest. We've got a big day of driving ahead. He stifled a yawn, polishing off the last of the protein bar. Yeah, you're probably right about that. Resettling himself on the pallet, he closed his eyes with a soft groan. Just a few hours. That's all I need. Chapter 66. As the first light of dawn crept through the warehouse windows, Tommy emerged from his bedroll, muscles aching from the previous day's trials. He watched as the others slowly came to life, stretching and rubbing the sleep from their eyes. Layla was already up, hunched over a map spread out on the van's hood. She looked up as Tommy approached, offering a weary smile. Morning, how are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a damn truck, but I'll live. What's the plan for today? Roxy appeared at his side, her hair tousled from sleep. Well, we still need to find some methadone for Mickey, and after yesterday's fiasco, we're running low on just about everything else, too. Jimbo ambled over, stifling a yawn. Food, fuel, ammo. The holy trinity of the apocalypse. Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us, Tommy said, studying the map. Where do you think we should start, Lai? Layla tapped a finger on the map. We head towards Kansas. Should be able to make it by mid-afternoon. There's towns along the way. Might be our best bet for finding supplies without running into too much trouble. Zero joined them, his rifle slung over his shoulder. We should get moving soon. Daylight's burning. As they began to pack up and load the van, Roxy turned to Jimbo with a grin. You know, I've been thinking about these zombies we've been dealing with. Jimbo raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What about them? Well, they're not exactly the sprinty kind, are they? More like the classic Romero shamblers. True that. I guess we should count ourselves lucky. Can you imagine trying to outrun the ones from 28 days later? Roxy shuddered. No thanks. I'll take the slow and steady type any day. Zero paused in his packing, glancing over at them. You ever think about how this whole thing started? I mean, what's causing people to turn into walkers? Gotta be some kind of virus or bacteria, Roxy said, shoving a duffel bag into the back of the van. Something that gets into the blood and rewires the brain. Or maybe it's one of those parasitic fungi that turn ants into zombies, Zero said. I saw a documentary about that once. Tommy furrowed his brow. You know, I haven't seen any zombie animals since this whole thing began. No undead cats or dogs, no birds dropping out of the sky. It seems to be a strictly human problem. Jimbo let out a low whistle. Damn, I never even thought about the possibility of a zombie moose. Thanks for the new nightmare fuel, dude. Laughter rippled through the group. As they finished loading the last of their gear into the van, it became clear that space was going to be tight. They all stared at the vehicle, trying to figure out the best configuration. I can drive for a while, Zero said. Give the rest of you a chance to catch some more shut-eye. Layla hesitated, glancing at Tommy. I don't know. I feel like it should be me or Tommy driving. Zero shook his head. No offense, but you look like you're about to fall asleep on your feet, and Tommy here looks like he could use another 8 hours himself. Tommy wanted to protest, but he couldn't deny the exhaustion tugging at his eyelids. Zero's right. We'll be no good to anyone if we're too tired to think straight. Layla sighed, then nodded. Okay, fine, but wake me up if you need a break, all right? You got it, boss, Zero said, climbing into the driver's seat. The others piled in, arranging themselves as best they could in the cramped space. Tommy found himself wedged between Roxy and the passenger window. Layla and Jimbo sat in the back with Mickey stretched out on the floor at their feet. As Zero guided the van out of the warehouse and onto the open road, Tommy felt his eyelids growing heavy. The gentle rocking motion of the vehicle lulled him into a drowsy state, his head nodding against his chest. Beside him, Roxy had already drifted off, her head resting on his shoulder while Mickey snored softly from his spot on the floor. Chapter 67. Tommy stirred from his slumber, the sound of raised voices pulling him back to wakefulness. He blinked, taking a moment to orient himself. The van was still moving, the scenery outside the windows a blur of endless fields and open sky. In the back of the van, Mickey tossed and turned, his skin slick with sweat. Can you please stop fidgeting so much? Layla snapped. You're driving me crazy. Mickey glared at her, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. Oh, I'm sorry. Is my agonizing withdrawal inconveniencing you? Maybe if Tommy had found me some damn methadone like he promised, I wouldn't be in this situation. Layla bristled. We've all risked our lives out there trying to find you medicine. Zero nearly died, so don't you dare put that on us. Put it on you? Mickey let out a bitter laugh that turned into a hacking cough. I'm the one who feels like my bones are trying to crawl out of my skin. I'm the one emptying my guts out either end every half hour. You have no idea what this is like. You're right, I don't. But I do know that we're all just trying to survive here. And maybe if you hadn't gotten yourself hooked on that junk in the first place. Don't. Mickey's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Don't you dare judge me. Not when I've been through hell and back with you lot. The van hit a pothole, jostling them all. Jimbo snorted in his sleep but didn't wake. I'm not judging you, Mickey, but your addiction affects all of us now. We can't keep going on like this, with you sick and us constantly at risk trying to score you a fix. So what? You just expect me to ride it out cold turkey? In case it's escaped your notice, the world has gone to hell. Excuse me if I needed something to take the edge off. Mickey shifted again. I know it hurts. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. But Mickey, we need you. We need you clear-headed and strong if we're going to make it through this. I don't know if I'm strong enough, Lay. I don't know if I can do this. Layla reached across the small space between them and gripped his hand. You can. We'll help you through this, okay? We'll find a way. Mickey hung his head, taking a shuddering breath. All right, I'll try. For you lot, if nothing else. Or we could let him out here, Zero said. Ungrateful twat can walk his ass back to Philly on his own. Tommy sighed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Hey guys, maybe we could all just try to get along for a little while longer, at least until we find a place to stop and stretch our legs? Layla sighed. Where are we anyway? Just coming up on Burlington, Zero said. Shouldn't be too much longer now. Jimbo perked up. Hey, isn't that where the Kit Carson County Fairground is? Man, I've always wanted to check that place out. Roxy groaned. Are you serious right now? We're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse and you want to go to a fairground? Have you not seen Zombieland? Jimbo grinned. Come on, it could be fun. Plus think of all the supplies we might find there. Cotton candy, funnel cakes, maybe even some Twinkies. Yeah, because that's exactly what we need right now. A sugar rush and a case of salmonella. Zero cleared his throat. Actually, I've got a better idea. He turned the wheel, guiding the van off the main road and onto a narrower side street. Tommy leaned forward, trying to get a better look at their surroundings. Where are we going? Prairie Pines Golf Course, Zero said. A golf course? Why? Thinking of taking in a few rounds? Think about it, Tommy boy. There's bound to be a clubhouse, which means shelter and maybe even some supplies. Plus, with all that open space, we'll be able to see any zombies coming from a mile away. Roxy nodded slowly. And I can't imagine a golf course being high on the list of priorities for any raiders or looters. Exactly, Zero said. All right, Tommy said, let's do it. Jimbo huffed. Aw, I wanted to go on the carousel. Chapter 68. As the van pulled into the golf course parking lot, Tommy glanced over at Mickey, his face pale and slick with sweat. Hey Mick, we're gonna head inside, see if we can find some supplies, maybe even a place to rest for a bit. You want to stay here in the van? Mickey shook his head, his jaw clenched tight. No, I'm coming with you. Are you sure that's a good idea? Layla said. You should really try to rest. I'm fine, I need to move around a bit, get some fresh air. Tommy exchanged a glance with Zero, who shrugged. All right, man, but you stick close to us, okay? And if you start feeling worse, you let us know right away. Mickey nodded, already reaching for the door handle. Yeah, Tommy, I got it. As the group piled out of the van, stretching their cramped muscles and blinking in the bright sunlight, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in the pit of his stomach. Mickey was in bad shape. He couldn't help but wonder if bringing him along was a mistake. He shouldered his backpack and swung his bat, scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. All right, guys, let's do this. Jimbo clapped him on the back, a grin splitting his face. Lead the way, dude. Just keep your balls protected. Grow up, Jimbo, Roxy said. Jimbo held up his hands. What did I do? We're at a golf club. There's golf balls. We don't want them rolling around for someone to step on. I bet they keep them in a sack. A huge ball sack. Roxy rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. You're an idiot, you know that? Yeah, but I'm your idiot. Tommy approached the clubhouse first, baseball bat at the ready, but as they drew closer, it became clear that the building was deserted. No signs of life, human or otherwise. Looks like we might be in luck. Let's head inside and see what we can find. Zero took point, pushing open the heavy wooden doors and scanning the interior for any potential threats. He still carried his rifle, not that it would do him much good without ammo. A spacious lobby spread out before them, complete with plush armchairs and a large stone fireplace. Whoa, Jimbo said. Fancy digs. Roxy snorted. Yeah, because nothing says post-apocalyptic chic like a bunch of rich people's leftovers. Tommy chuckled. All right, guys, let's split up and start searching. Holler if you find anything useful. The group dispersed, each heading off in a different direction. Tommy found himself in what appeared to be a small dining area, complete with tables and chairs. He rummaged through the cabinets, finding a few cans of soup and some crackers. Jackpot, Jimbo's voice echoed from somewhere down the hall. Guys, come check this out. Tommy hurried towards the sound, the others close behind. They found Jimbo standing in the middle of a large room lined with shelves and display cases. Is that? Layla said, her eyes widening. A pro shop, Zero said. Looks like we hit the mother lode. The group spread out, each grabbing whatever caught their eye. Tommy snagged a few golf clubs, testing their weight and balance. Hey Tommy, Roxy called out. She had donned a brightly colored golf hat, the brim pulled low over her eyes. What do you think? Is this my new look? Tommy laughed. Oh, definitely very punk. Hey guys, Jimbo's voice rang out from outside. Come check this out. The group rushed to the window, peering out to see Jimbo sitting behind the wheel of a golf cart, a huge grin on his face. No way, Roxy said, shaking her head. Jimbo revved the engine, the cart lurching forward across the grass. Woohoo. Woohoo, this is awesome, Zero chuckled. Hate to break it to you, Jimbo, but there's no way we're fitting that thing in the van. Jimbo shrugged. That's okay. I'll just drive it alongside you guys. It'll be like having my own personal escort. As the others continued to explore the pro shop, Tommy wandered off in search of anything else that might prove useful. He found himself in a small room lined with cabinets and a large metal table. Guys, in here. The others filed in as Tommy took in the supplies scattered across the table and shelves. Bandages, painkillers, antiseptic. Layla snatched bottles, stuffing them into her pack. This is great. Tommy glanced over at Mickey, rifling through the cabinets with desperate intensity. You all right, man? Mickey slammed a cabinet shut, his face contorted. It's not here, the methadone. I thought maybe. He placed a hand on Mickey's shoulder. I'm sorry, man. But we'll keep looking, okay? We're not giving up. Mickey nodded, his jaw clenched tight. As the group gathered up their haul and prepared to head back to the van, Mickey grabbed one of the bottles of whiskey they had found behind the bar. It's not methadone, he said, twisting off the cap and taking a long swig. But it'll do for now. Tommy watched his friend with a mix of concern and understanding. He knew all too well the desperation that came with addiction, the overwhelming need to quiet the screaming in your head by any means necessary. The old Tommy might have stopped him, would have tried to talk him down, but now he'd take anything for an easier life. Zero paused to sort through the various clubs they had collected. We should stick with the irons, he said, setting aside the woods. They're less likely to break when we're bashing in zombie skulls. Roxy raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do you know so much about golf clubs, Mr. Tough Guy? Zero shrugged. Let's just say I used to play a lot of Mario Golf back in the day. Jimbo laughed, clapping Zero on the back. No way, dude. I love that game. We should totally have a tournament sometime. Yeah, because that's exactly what we need right now, Roxy said. A bunch of grown men playing video games while the world ends around us. Dude, that's exactly what we need. Remember when we used to have fun? Roxy shrugged. Maybe. It's hard to have fun when all your bandmates are dead. As they rounded the corner of the building, Tommy's heart sank. The van was surrounded by a sea of zombies. Tommy did a quick head count. There had to be at least 30 of the undead bastards, with more shambling their way across the golf course. Okay, nobody panic. We just need to... Need to what? Mickey snapped. There's too many of them. We're screwed. Zero stepped forward, his jaw set. No, we're not. We can do this. Tommy nodded. Zero's right. We just need to be smart about this. Spread out, use the terrain to our advantage. Roxy adjusted her golf cap. Let's tee off. The group fanned out, each grabbing whatever makeshift weapons they could find. Tommy grabbed a club and a bucket of golf balls. What are you going to do with those? Roxy asked. Tommy grinned. Improvise. He stuffed his baseball bat into his pack and took off running towards the nearest green. Zombies turned to follow him. The others copied his lead, their shouts and taunts echoing across the course. Tommy reached the green and spun around, golf balls at the ready. The first zombie lurched towards him, its rotting arms outstretched. Tommy took aim and let fly, the ball hitting the creature square between the eyes. It stumbled backwards, momentarily stunned. Ha! Tommy shouted. Hole in one, baby! He turned to see Layla and Mickey nearby, both armed with golf clubs. They swung with wild abandon, each blow connecting with a sickening crunch. I think I'm getting the hang of this, Layla called. Mickey looked like he was about to be sick. I can't believe I'm using a 9-iron to bash in zombie brains. Across the course, Roxy had climbed atop a golf cart and was using it as a makeshift sniper's nest. She had found a bucket of range balls and was launching them at the approaching horde. 4! She shouted, as another ball found its mark. Jimbo screeched past in another golf cart, using it to ram into the zombies, sending them flying like undead bowling pins. But for every zombie they took down, 2 more seemed to take its place. They were being slowly but surely overwhelmed, the horde pressing in from all sides. Tommy gripped his golf club tighter as more closed in. The stench of decay hung in the air, mingling with the scent of grass and pine. Layla swung her club, the sickening crunch of metal against bone ringing out as she caved in a zombie's skull. A scream tore through the air. Tommy spun around to see Jimbo, his golf cart overrun by a swarm of the undead. They clawed at him, their rotten fingers grasping at his clothes, trying to drag him down. Jimbo! Tommy sprinted forward, dodging the outstretched arms of the zombies in his path. He reached the cart just as Jimbo managed to kick free, sending a severed hand flying through the air. Dude, that was way too close. Jimbo panted hard, his face pale beneath his mop of sweat-soaked hair. Tommy hauled him to his feet, scanning the area for a way out. His gaze landed on the nearby sand trap, its steep walls offering a potential refuge. Come on, I've got an idea. He dragged Jimbo towards the bunker, shouting for the others to follow. They tumbled down the sandy slope, the zombies close on their heels. What now, genius? Roxy snapped, her golf hat askew and her new polo shirt already splattered with gore. We're trapped like rats down here. His eyes fell on the nearby flag marking the hole, its bright red fabric fluttering in the breeze. Mickey, give me your shirt, he said, already stripping off his own. Mickey blinked at him. What? Why? Just do it. Mickey peeled off his sweat-soaked t-shirt and tossed it to Tommy. Tommy snatched up the flag, tying the shirts to the end to create a makeshift banner. He turned to the others. Right. Here's the plan. Zero, Jimbo, you're with me. We're going to wave this thing around, get their attention, then leg it across the course. Layla, Roxy, Mickey, you lot make a break for the van as soon as they're distracted. Got it? This is never going to work, Zero said. Sure it will, Tommy said. It's just like being on stage, man. We've just got to give them a show they won't forget. With a whoop, he vaulted out of the sand trap, waving the banner high above his head. Oi, you rotten bastards, come get some. The zombies turned as one, their milky eyes locking onto the fluttering banner. They began to stumble towards him, their movements sluggish but relentless. That's it, come on. Tommy backed away slowly. Follow the pretty flag, you brain-dead freaks. Zero and Jimbo hurled their own insults, drawing even more of the horde away from the others. The zombies shambled after them, leaving a clear path to the van. Tommy risked a glance over his shoulder and saw Layla, Roxy, and Mickey making a run for it, their golf clubs abandoned in favor of speed. Tommy leapt over a bench, rotting fingers grazing his boots. He swung the flag like a matador's cape, taunting them, drawing them ever further away. Beside him, Zero and Jimbo joined in, their shouts and jeers mingling with the groans. They wove between the trees, ducking and dodging the zombies' grasping hands. We need to get back to the van. Tommy threw the banner down and swung his club at another zombie, braining it against a tree. Zero nodded. Jimbo, bring that cart over here. Jimbo sprinted back towards the golf cart, hopped inside, and hurtled towards them. All aboard the Zombie Express. Tommy and Zero clambered onto the back of the cart, using it as a makeshift battle platform. They clung to the roof as Jimbo floored it, the cart's electric motor whining in protest. They plowed through the horde, golf clubs swinging and bodies flying. Jimbo came to a stop 20 or so meters from the van. Roxy, Layla, and Mickey joined them. There's too many by the van still, Roxy said. We're not driving out of here until those deadheads move. The clubhouse. Tommy pointed back towards the building. If we can lure them inside, we might be able to slip past and make a run for the van. It's worth a shot. They turned the cart around, Jimbo laying on the horn to get the zombies' attention. The horde turned as one, their milky eyes fixating on the new target. Come on, you ugly bastards, Jimbo waved his arms. Come and get us, you dead freaks. Jimbo led the zombies back along the green, weaving in and out of the sand traps and water hazards. Layla and Mickey followed close behind. When they reached the clubhouse, Tommy and Zero leaped from the cart, sprinting towards the doors. Inside now. Tommy waved the others forward. They piled through the doors, slamming them shut behind them. The zombies pressed up against the glass, their moans muffled by the thick panes. That's not going to hold them for long, Roxy said, her chest heaving. Tommy nodded. We need to move. They raced through the building, bursting out the back entrance. But a second horde shambled towards them from the opposite direction, cutting off their escape. Oh, come on, Mickey groaned. Give us a damn break. Tommy's grip tightened on his golf club, his mind racing. There! He pointed across the parking lot. Another cart! The group sprinted towards it. Jimbo leaped into the driver's seat, his fingers scrabbling for the keys. Come on, come on! The engine roared to life. Jimbo let out a whoop as the others piled in behind him. He tore across the parking lot, zombies falling away on either side. Tommy clung to the roof, his heart in his throat as they neared the van. Get ready, Zero said, his voice barely audible over the wind. They leaped from the cart, hitting the ground running. Tommy yanked open the van's side door, practically throwing Mickey inside. The others piled in behind him, Zero taking the wheel. The tires squealed as Zero peeled out of the parking lot, leaving the clubhouse behind. Tommy sagged against the seat, his body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. That was insane, Roxy said. Jimbo let out a laugh. Dude, we just fought off a horde of zombies with a freaking golf cart. Insane doesn't even begin to cover it. Mickey reached for the whiskey bottle, his hands shaking as he unscrewed the cap. I never want to see another golf course again in my life. Tommy couldn't help but chuckle. But we made it, and we're up on supplies. Mickey knocked back a swig of whiskey. Still no stuff, though. Not yet, Tommy nodded. But we'll keep looking. Mickey glanced down at the bottle and offered it to Tommy. Tommy raised his hands. I'm good, man. Mickey shrugged and took another drink. Suit yourself. To be continued. Thanks for listening.